Opinion, I'll be telling you about a music band called Slaves. They're very talented, but they've changed their name for fear of offending people. You couldn't make it up. In my take at 10, a positive message about everyone getting along that we can all agree on. My Mark Meets guest is one of the most experienced and best-known politicians in the country. Former Conservative Home Secretary and Tory party leader Lord Michael Howard, live in the studio. But kicking off the show, we have the Conservatives' MP, the one and only Michael Fabricant, with Rishi Sunak having seemingly a breakthrough in the illegal migrant crisis and signs of hope for the economy. Have they turned the corner? Also, are Meghan and Harry now unwelcome in Britain? We'll hear from both sides on that one. And looking at the other big stories of the day, another big personality, nightclub owner and entrepreneur. What a character this guy is, Wayne Lineker. You heard me right. Lots to get through. Michael Fabricant is next, and those are clips of the week. It is Friday night, so I want to stimulate you and inform you in equal measure. But first, the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Mark, thank you. I am Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. Eurostar says it's been forced to cancel its services to London on Boxing Day because the RMT strikes will close the UK's high-speed line. It's as more than 40,000 union members strike for a third time this week following an ongoing dispute over pay and conditions. RMT leader Mick Lynch says little progress has been made during negotiations, but he believes a compromise is achievable. More industrial action is planned for tomorrow. A man from Leicestershire who murdered his partner in his parents' home has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years. Ross McCullum was dating his colleague Megan Newborough when he strangled and cut her throat last year. The court heard how he tried to cover up her death by hiding her clothes in nearby bins and leaving a voicemail on her phone. Her family described him as the definition of a monster.
I know how difficult it's been for my parents and sister to sit at court every day, listening to the web of lies spun by someone Megan not only knew, but whom she trusted, someone who clearly had no love for her at all. We're the ones now serving the life sentence. No amount of time in prison can bring Megan back. We have to carry on with our lives as best as we can, but Megan will never leave our thoughts.
A man and woman have been arrested after two young boys were found dead at a residential address in East London. The Met Police and London Ambulance were called to Cornwallis Road in Dagenham this afternoon. The boys, aged 2 and 5, were pronounced dead at the scene. It's understood the man and woman were both known to the children and they remain in police custody. And police are also investigating a suspected triple murder in Northamptonshire. The victims have been named as Anju Asok, who was an NHS nurse, and her two young children, Jiva and Janvi Saju. They were found at a house in Kettering yesterday morning. A 52-year-old man is being questioned in connection with their deaths. 3 people are in a critical condition and 1 person has been arrested after a suspected crowd crush at a music venue in South London.
Asked us to close the show. We apologize to you. This has nothing to do with us.
The Met Police has launched an investigation after officers were called to the Brixton O2 Academy last night. Video footage shows a large crowd of people trying to force their way into the concert. Police say they're reviewing social media and CCTV video. And a former lady-in-waiting, Lady Susan Hussey, has apologised for repeatedly asking a charity boss where she was from during a royal reception. Buckingham Palace says she met Ngozi Fulani in person and pledged to deepen her awareness of the sensitivities involved. Miss Fulani accepted the apology and says she appreciates no malice was intended. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now, let's get back to Mark.
My thanks to Bethany Elsey, who is really from the northeast. Put your teeth in. There's your clip for next week. The northeast of England. Isn't she brilliant? Bethany Elsey back in an hour's time. We kick off, as always, on Mark Dolan tonight with the legendary clips of the week, my highlights from 7 days of GB News, the good, the bad and the ugly. At 9 o'clock, in My Big Opinion, I'll be telling you about a music band called Slaves who have changed their name for fear of offending people. You couldn't make it up. In my Take at 10, a positive message about everyone getting along that we can all agree on. And my Mark Meets guest is one of the most experienced and best-known politicians in the country, former Conservative Home Secretary and Tory party leader, Lord Michael Howard, who's live in the studio. It's a Mark Meets special. Also, are Meghan and Harry now unwelcome in Britain? We'll hear from both sides on that one. And looking at the other big stories of the day, another big personality, nightclub owner and entrepreneur, Wayne Lineker. You heard me right. So it is Friday night and the trains are cancelled. So you're stuck indoors. Therefore, I suggest you grab something cold and fizzy from the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's have a brilliant night in. What better way to start than my GB News clips of the week? It's been another lively week on GB News, but one topic has been dominating the news agenda. Let's take a listen.
Rishi Sunak is being accused of treating asylum seekers like criminals after he also... Excuse me, I've never sneezed during a news bulletin before, but I do apologise. As I was saying...
Polly there, clearly back on the marching powder. I mean, strong tea, of course. Meanwhile, Michelle Dewberry can always be counted on to tackle the really big topics hitting the headlines. And luckily, she was on hand to give us her take on Sneezegate.
Thanks for that, Polly. Steve says he's just tuned in and what he says was that noise during the news bulletin. It was Polly. I want to clip that up, so I am. I didn't have the joy, though, of seeing her. I just heard her, so I have no idea if she pulled that really weird face before. And you know when you're desperately trying to stop yourself sneezing?
Well, Michelle, I don't think that really weird face is when you're sneezing. Meanwhile, sticking with our news bulletins, and Rhiannon Jones has unearthed a new power source. Take a listen.
Comes after the airline secured £1 million worth of government funding to fly a plane from London Heathrow to New York using sustainable aviation fuel.
Oh, my God, not another flu. What the hell is aviation flu? Have I got to wear a mask? Meanwhile, it's the World Cup, of course. We covered it. It was massive. It's going on. England bowed out last weekend, and our man, Paul Hawkins, was in Qatar, capturing all of the colour, passion and pageantry. Take a look.
Similar story, I'm afraid. One of heartache and drama, really. England, very conservative in the first half, not really moving the ball with much urgency.
Paul, couldn't you find a park or a shopping centre? Where the hell are you? You're on a bloody dual carriageway. GB News hasn't got that kind of insurance. There's going to be an HGV behind you if you're not careful. Let's take another look at that again. An accident waiting to happen.
Hiya. Similar story, I'm afraid. One of heartache and drama, really. England, very conservative in the first half, not really moving the ball with much urgency.
Next time you broadcast from the motorway, big guy, this is the equipment you'll need. Can't be too safe. What a helmet. Of course, it's easy to make fun of others when you're a polished media performer who makes it look effortless. Apart from looking at the wrong camera, the mic dropping out and wires everywhere. My link here with Nigel Farage was seamless.
I'm done for today. Back with you at 7 tomorrow. I'm going to hand you over now to Mark Dolan.
Well, Nigel, a really busy show. This migrant crisis, it needs to be sorted within days. Thanks, Nigel. Nigel? Ah, there you are. Luckily, I've now got the hang of this broadcasting lark. The brilliant Patrick Christys likes appearing in this segment so much, he started suggesting clips of his own. And why not when you get our wonderful GB News viewers producing content like this?
Angrier at their management than they are at the government. Yeah, we've got a family member that earns a really good salary on the National Health, and I've no idea what she does. She would tell me it's the most important job in the world, but I've no idea. There must be loads.
It's not being funny, John. I mean, whilst I do appreciate you coming on national television and lobbing an anonymous family member under the bus. I mean, is that not a concern, John, that you don't know what they do?
I've got no idea what she does. None. Only that she works for the NHS.
Sometimes the comedy writes itself. What a ringing endorsement for our health service. Talk about value for money. Staying with Patrick, and we can't just take the mick out in this section. We need some serious content as well. Political commentator Charlie Peters has been doing important work reporting on the abuse scandal in Rotherham, and he had a chilling message for council members who he claims have been too silent on the issue, and he's not...
Perhaps I can making a crack, actually. Am I on camera, right? Members of that cabinet who are still serving, OK, the pot is boiling and the lid is beginning to chatter. We are coming for you, OK? Not even the fastest can outrun the truth. And we know that you're at those meetings, and we know that you've ignored all the warnings for all these years, and you've escaped attention from the media, but that is coming to a close very soon.
You can't handle the truth! By the way, what the hell does the lid is beginning to chatter mean? Is this it? What's going on here? What on earth is a chatter? Many thanks to The Breakfast Show for their expensive crockery, by the way. Well, it was expensive. Now, let's crack on. We've got more for you. This is my favourite part of Charlie Peters' rather sly turn. Take a look.
Am I on camera, right? Members of that cabinet who are still serving, OK?
I'm on camera 8. Fair play. At least he knows which camera to look at. Another week of vanilla neutrality from Dan Wootton, sitting on the fence, as always, in regards to the Meghan and Harry story. Remember the golden rule of the show. No spin, no bias, no censorship.
I hope it was worth the money, Harry, because today, for the Netflix millions and to impress your narcissistic, delusionist wife and her sycophantic, fake Hollywood celebrity pals, you have destroyed any chance of ever having a relationship again with your brother.
Yeah, but Dan, what do you really think? Do you like the couple? Do you not like the couple? I'm so confused.
I hope it was worth the money, Harry, because today, for the Netflix millions and to impress your narcissistic, delusionist wife and her sycophantic, fake Hollywood celebrity pals, you have destroyed any chance of ever having a relationship again with your brother.
Sorry, still no idea. I'm guessing they're besties. Where else could we finish but with headliners? Every night at 11 o'clock, the gang get behind some of the most serious news lines hitting the next morning's papers.
Let's finish very quickly with the Daily Star, who have got a different tack on the day's events.
Yeah, so a border collie has crashed a car.
That was never going to end well.
It was an English border collie, so it just has an open border policy.
Open border policy, you can't follow that. And those are your clips of the week. Well done to the team for compiling those. If you see any of the output during the week, or if you hear it on DAB Plus on the radio, do drop me a line and just label your email clips of the week. It could be something serious, something fun, a technical fail, a presenter fail. Anything that catches your eye or ear, do send it over. Clips of the week, we'll do it, of course, next week. Lots coming up. Tory recovery with Michael Fabricant. Have the Conservatives turned the corner? We'll speak to one of the most colourful members of Parliament in the House of Commons, Michael Fabricant, live in the studio. Meghan and Harry, are they still welcome in Britain? And Wayne Lineker, live on the show, covering the week's big stories. Lots to get through. See you in 3.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Stephanie has emailed the show. Clips of the week is fast becoming my highlight on GB News. Thank you, Stephanie. How about this from David? Mark, that will be a new helmet coming out of your wages. It's no use to anyone after hitting the floor like that, let me assure you, as a motorcyclist. Well, Dave, you're absolutely right. I'm a biker as well. Luckily, this is a knackered, broken old helmet that I don't use anymore, which works perfectly as a bit of a prop. Look, we'll keep those clips going. If you see or hear anything on the channel that you think's worthy of clips of the week, do let me know, Mark at gbnews.uk. Very excited about tonight's show. My Mark Meets guest after 10 is Lord Michael Howard, live in the studio. Plus, my big opinion monologue and my take at 10, and the panel with tomorrow's papers. But first, having outlined a 5-point plan to tackle illegal immigration, including a deal with the Albanian government to send back Albanians, and potentially positive news about the economy, with inflation possibly having peaked and with a shallower recession than once feared, are the Conservatives showing signs of life? Well, someone that's full of life, he's got it in abundance, is the fearless and charismatic Conservative MP for Lichfield, Michael Fabricant. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Mark. I remember that helmet because you gave me a lift once back to the House of Commons on the back of your scooter, and I think that was the very helmet I wore.
I passed my helmet to you and you took it readily.
Yes, well, we won't go into that, will we? But it's legal nowadays.
Michael, it's great to have you back on the show, and I see you're wearing a sheep tonight.
Well, it's very comfortable and it's a bit cold up here in Lichfield, so it's keeping me nice and warm. But it's a pink sheep.
Well, it suits you very well. Let me warm you with, I think, what is positive political news for the government. I know that Labour are being predicted to achieve a 300-seat majority at the next election. I think that's wide of the mark. Inflation has likely peaked, at least we can hope it has. The recession potentially shallower than once feared. It's all to play for, isn't it?
I think that's right. I mean, as I tell colleagues, actually, and journalists who do agree with me, you know what? Keir Starmer is no Tony Blair. He doesn't inspire people. And it's when you look at the polling, it's actually very weak, the support for the Labour Party and Keir Starmer personally. But the Conservative Party's got to deliver first. People will just vote for Labour on the basis, well, they can't be any worse than the Conservatives if we don't deliver. I mean, you ask, is this the verge of the recovery? I'm going to do my Winston Churchill impersonation here. I'll read it. But like Winston Churchill, now, this is not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning. And that's what I think. But we've got to sort out the borders. As you say, we've got this multi-point plan to stop people from crossing the channel and dissuading people from using people traffickers. But it's all very well talking about it, but we've got to deliver. We've got to get the economy straight. Now, the governor of the Bank of England, as he said, is saying that inflation has peaked. And now, look, you know, the Germany and the European Union have got higher inflation than we have. And Germany's been in recession for the last 6 months. But that doesn't cut any ice with the electorate, because they're saying, we're interested in what's happening here. So we've got to hold our nerve, because I think the third thing that we've got to deliver is unity. And, you know, sometimes I hear one or two colleagues of mine, look, I didn't back Rishi Sunak, and Rishi knows that, but he is the Prime Minister, and I think all Conservative MPs have to support him now.
How did that 5-point plan go down among Tory backbenchers, and how is it going down in Lichfield?
Well, it's going down well, providing, as I say, we can deliver. Look, we're concentrating at the moment on Albanians, but, you know, there are Somalis and others too. And there's a different question there, because they do come from difficult countries. So the question is, can we send them back to Somalia? Probably not. But there is, of course, a point in international law that actually, if you're in a safe country, you're not escaping from France. France is not a country that people have to fear their lives in. And this is a whole issue about where we get to. Can we send them to Rwanda? Are people going to say this is in breach of human rights? And do we need a change in the Human Rights Act? And I think we do. This doesn't mean our pulling out of the European Court, a court which incidentally we helped set up. But it does mean having the same structure that they have, for example, in Sweden, where they expel immigrants. And I don't think anybody's going to say that Sweden is a particularly right-wing or evil country.
If, Michael, we anticipate an election in, for example, May or October of 2024, where do you think we will be numbers-wise in terms of those illegal crossings? We know that they've peaked at around 1,000 a day in the height of summer. Where do you anticipate those numbers will be in a couple of years' time? And what is the right figure in terms of your constituents and what they would expect?
Well, I don't know what they'll be, Mark, but what I do know is this. They've got to come down, or we'll get a Labour government. And if we get a Labour government, I'm pretty sure those numbers will go up. Because even when Keir Starmer occasionally talks tough about illegal immigration, I sit there in the House of Commons and I look behind Keir Starmer and I see all those ranks of Labour MPs shaking their heads. Oh no, Keir, you're not going to get this legislation through under our watch. And that's the problem with the Labour Party, of course. And that's why you don't actually hear Keir Starmer coming up with any plans, because he's not frightened about the Conservative Party shooting those ideas down. He's frightened of his own backbenchers shooting those ideas down. So once we deliver, once we get the economy straight, And providing we can have unity, I still think, given that there isn't this huge support for Keir Starmer in the country, I actually think we could win another parliamentary term. But we've got to deserve it first.
Why do you think Labour are so far ahead? Because, many viewers that I receive emails from say, well, Labour couldn't do a worse job than the Tories. We've got industrial strife, we've got illegal migrant crossings, and we've got an economic crisis. It's not a good look for the incumbent at the moment.
No, it's not. I mean, look, I would have kept Boris Johnson. I actually think Boris Johnson was doing a good job. OK, we know where things went wrong with him, but actually he was getting things done. We got Brexit done. We got COVID done. You know all that already. And, if Keir Starmer had his way, we'd probably still be in lockdown. But I can understand why people feel the way they do. We get rid of Boris. Liz Truss came in. How long did she last? About 5 weeks. Then Rishi came in, and a lot of Conservatives who are members of the party said, well, hang on for a minute. We didn't actually vote for Rishi. And, they feel very, very disenfranchised. But actually, when push comes to shove, in a year, 18 months' time, almost could be 2 years' time, legally, I'm not saying it's going to be then, but legally there needn't be a general election till January 2025. And I think it was Harold Wilson who said a week is a long time in politics, great Labour politician. Well, I can tell you a couple of years is even longer. So let's just see how the economy goes. But if we don't get it straight, we won't win and we won't deserve to win.
Michael, the problem for the government at the moment is that it's not Rishi Sunak running the country, it's Mick Lynch of the RMT union.
I think it's the civil servants running the country. That's the problem at the moment. We've got to make sure that actually it's the government that runs the country and not the civil servants holding us back. And I probably now get all the civil servants coming out on strike too. No, Mick Lynch is an interesting character, and a number of people have been saying on GBNews what his background is and his love for Marxism and international overthrow of democratically elected governments and all the rest of it. But we've got to stand firm. At the end of the day, it's costing the train drivers a lot of money being constantly on strike. I'm always one for compromise, but I think at the same time, we've got to have modern ways of running the train system. The days of having multiple guards and all the rest of it are long gone with steam trains. But of course, Mick Lynch would have it that, we've got to stay exactly as we were 100 years ago. Nobody wants to lose their jobs, and it is the job of a trade union, I suppose, to keep jobs. But I'm sure it will be resolved, and people, will understand that we had to do what we had to do. But I think if we decide to give in completely to Mick Lynch, then people will say, well, in that case, that all the sacrifice wasn't worth it.
Finally, Michael, you are a popular and dedicated member of Parliament, very, very focused on your constituents, but you will get a break over Christmas. What are your plans for the 25th?
Oh, I'm going walking in the mountains with a friend of mine in Spain. It's going to be freezing. I won't be doing it in shorts, but normally I'm actually in the UK on Christmas Day. But I'm flying to Malaga and then going up into the mountains beyond there. And a friend said to me, if you come back with tats and a wickerwork donkey, you'll never speak to me again.
Enjoy the, on that donkey note, enjoy the sangria and enjoy the patatas bravas, and look forward to catching up in the new year. My thanks to Michael Fabricant, MP. Coming up, Lord Michael Howard live in the studio for a Mark Meets special at 10. Later this hour, we'll speak to Wayne Lineker, entrepreneur and nightclub owner, about the big stories of the week. But next up, are Harry and Meghan unwelcome in Britain? We'll debate that with Precious Muir and Rafe Heidel-Mancu. See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight, which begins at 8 p.m. every Friday and Saturday, right through until 11. Tonight, Lord Howard is with me in the studio. He's my Mark Meets guest, Lord Michael Howard, talking about his career and what he thinks of Rishi Sunak. Also, we're going to get to damaging revelations now about Harry and Meghan and their Netflix documentary series. The question we're posing is a simple one. Are the couple now unwelcome in Britain? Above and beyond whether they've fallen out with the royal family, have they completely lost the goodwill of the British people? What kind of reception would they get if they returned? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome television personality Precious Muir and the royal historian and broadcaster Rafe Heidel Manku. Precious, are Harry and Meghan unwelcome in Britain now?
Absolutely not. I mean, they are more than welcome. They are going to be somebody in the country that is going to be able to be relatable to the younger generation. They're going to carry themselves in a way that everyone of colour is going to embrace them. Harry even said it in the documentary that they are missing out. The royal family are missing out in having Meghan a part of the family.
Now, when you say relatable, this is a millionaire couple living in a Montecito mansion in California with 16 bathrooms, and they fly everywhere in a private jet. Doesn't sound very relatable to me.
It is relatable because they've changed the course in history in the UK.
For the worse?
For the better. For someone who is a woman of colour who can actually look at somebody else who's been a part of something that's been an historical movement. So it's changed the course of history for the better. Meghan has influenced so many young women, so many so many things that she's done that's influenced across the nation, across the world. When she's gone and met with people, she's greeted them, and people are just embraced and overwhelmed by her, like her genuine personality. There is nothing fake. There is nothing fake about.
Genuine?
There is nothing fake about Meghan.
She's as genuine as a 9-ball.
No, she is so genuine. She's so sincere. She's so sincere, and she comes across in a relatable way. So this is why people are looking to her as someone of an inspiration. I mean, there's things that's happened in history, in obviously through the documentary. They explained about the UK history. This documentary covered so much. It wasn't just about Harry and Meghan. It was about a love story, but it also was about shining the light on what's happened in the UK, history moments that have probably gone past the generations that haven't actually seen. So this documentary covered all of that. Amongst the history.
I'll give you that. Our history should be subjected to scrutiny and debate at all times.
I mean, the fact that we paid the slave owners to get to release the slaves. I mean, things like that. Some younger generation, they don't know this. This is something that the documentary covers.
Well, many would argue, including historians, it was a rather partisan or one-sided interpretation of British history. Of course,
it's a part of history that we don't necessarily know in schools. Education, things that are happening during our time at school, we don't learn about this kind of stuff.
And I hear what you're saying, but Reece, do we want children learning Harry and Meghan's version of history?
I was just going to say that the last people I would want teaching history in our schools are the people who were consulted for this piece of propaganda rather than a documentary series. Afua Hirsch, somebody who wants to see Nelson's column removed because he's a symbol of white supremacy. Kehinde Andrews, one of the most notorious grifters in this country, trying to stoke racial division. David Olusoga. These aren't reputable historians. These aren't really historians at all. I mean, what we have to understand is there's a myth that's been created here. One of the great propaganda rules is tell a big lie long enough and it will be believed. And that is the agenda behind this propaganda project. It's not a documentary. It's biased. It's flawed throughout. There's no sense to try to apply any balance to any of the arguments being made. And it just seems to me that we're losing the plot here by buying into the agenda that's being put here. One of which, of course, it should get one award, I should say, for Best Fantasy Series. Because essentially what they've done is they've...
covered a lot of facts. Covered a lot of facts. I mean, to be honest, to be a woman who's come into a society where they have not accepted her from the beginning because they didn't give her the tools.
They loved her at the beginning.
They didn't give her the tools to be able to manage, to deal with the royal, the things that she had to attend. She wasn't ready for this, and she did not understand the level. She was not ready for this.
She was more prepared than anybody else because she was already a celebrity.
She is
all the other royal wives who came in
and the level of interest grew tremendously. I mean, every single day she was in the press.
Camilla had far worse coverage. The hate and vitriol that Camilla
had.
Every
single day, this is something. There's something in the press.
What she's been able to do
really putting down her character, her mental stability. Like, she was just not able to deal with this.
What she's done is to create
waking
this
up
alternative
every day
reality.
with stories like this. It's ridiculous.
She's creating this alternative reality where the royal family are racist, the media is racist.
They have unconscious bias,
everyone who voted Brexit. Let me just finish the point, please. Everyone who voted Brexit is racist. This is the agenda, and then they're trying to portray Harry and Meghan as these victimised social justice warriors who are bravely battling oppression and racism as they fight for freedom. I mean, sorry, she's no Rosa Parks. She's much more like Jussie Smollett, another actor who cries racism where there is none.
However, were Harry and Meghan not right?
Absolutely accurate.
No, it's not. She doesn't cry racism. She is of colour. She can't change that. She wakes up and she is of colour. She can't play the race card.
Do you not think sometimes
she can't play the race card?
No, she can't. Because when you see her, you know what colour she is. She can't deny who she is.
Who said that?
And they treat her differently than the others. If Harry had married a white woman and had white children, do you know what UK would look like right now? Things have progressed in this country for the better. I'm telling you.
Now
Meghan actually marrying Harry has made the UK better. It has. As a woman, you would never understand, as a woman of colour, what it feels like to never be accepted in society, in certain ways of life in the UK. And the fact that you are now seeing a Meghan Markle in the royal family has changed history beyond what you can understand and what you can understand. I'm telling you.
As a child of the Empire, I was the biggest supporter of Meghan when she married
100%. And what made you change?
Precious, hold fire. Precious, excuse me, I do the monologues on this show. Now,
I called her the Heineken Princess, able to reach parts of the Commonwealth other princesses couldn't reach. Unfortunately, ever since then, we've realised that actually there was an ulterior motive to her becoming a princess, that she wasn't ready to compromise on any issues. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too. We had that terrific trio, of Harry and Kate and William, and the idea was we were going to have a Fab Four, the new Beatles there. Unfortunately, she wasn't one of the new Beatles.
They wanted them to be extras.
She's now the Yoko Ono of the royal family.
But she wanted to be the extras. They didn't want Harry and Meghan to shine. They wanted them to be
part of the royal family. Because it's great for the royal family.
But when they were getting too much love and embraced by the world, that's when they said, "Oh no, we've got to stop this."
And what evidence do you have for that?
Well, the media. All of this was.
Well, look, why don't you
show
us some of those headlines?
Look at this. I mean, drama queen. That's something. Meghan ruins Kate's birthday. Where do you think that comes from? That comes from within. Night from hell. That's something. I mean, Kate collapses. They make these stories up.
Most of those magazines look American to me. They're all American.
No, they're not. So the Express talks about how she's had to change her face to be somebody else. Her face is exactly the same as she was when she was born.
And you don't think that Sarah Ferguson was subjected to scrutiny when she married Prince Andrew? She received dog's abuse.
Everyone had, listen, the level of interest in everyone. I love to go to...
Was Diana the victim
of racism? was obviously, she was in the same position.
But that
she was also alone and she had to... No, but she was also alone when she had to deal with leaving the royal family, and that was traumatic. So the only person that could relate is Diana. Princess Diana went through the same thing. The only thing is she didn't have Harry to support her. The reasons between the both of them that are very relatable is the fact that they were shining brighter than the ones that they wanted.
She has never endured...
Princess Diana shined more than Charles, and they tried to cut her back.
Okay.
They did the same with Meghan and Harry because they wanted William and Kate to shine. Hence the stories. Hence all the stories that have come up.
It's absolutely not true. I mean, this whole idea is nonsense. For example, it was the royal family that suppressed publication of the report into Meghan's alleged bullying because they knew it would damage her reputation. Why wasn't that once mentioned on this show? All these allegations about the royal family briefing against Meghan, yet here was pure evidence. And those of us who actually work in this field know full well how often the palace were trying to suppress negative stories about Meghan.
You know that for sure. When they said this in the documentary and they stated that there was on social media, there was bots that were created.
A lot of hot air with no substance behind the allegations.
They were doing surveillance. They found out the bots were coming from somewhere.
Precious Muir.
It has to be from inside.
Precious, less is Muir. Listen. Can I suggest to you, I'm going to throw you a bone, right, which is that I think you made a brilliant point, which is that when Meghan became the Duchess of Sussex, that was an amazing moment.
It was.
It was, and you say that as a young black woman.
Yes.
And I completely understand that, and I think it was an amazing moment for the country. And even the Mail, I think, on wedding day, pointed out that it was Doria, Meghan's beautiful mother, who handed her away, who gave her away. And they just said a magically modern wedding is how the Mail described it.
Yeah.
I think where it went wrong is when Meghan began to reject her royal duties and when she realised she couldn't be a Hollywood star and serve the public as a serving member of the royal family. And that was the conflict, that she wanted to have her cake and eat it. In the end, she's taken Harry, right, and she's turned him against his own family.
No, she hasn't turned him anything.
And against
Harry was on his own journey. He was on his own journey and he was trying to find himself.
Wouldn't have happened without Meghan, would it?
It would have happened because he was in Africa trying to find himself.
Without Meghan.
He tried to He was trying to find himself way before Meghan came into the picture, and she fit in perfectly with his change. He decided to change because he knew that he was being raised in an institutional situation where it had some form of racism and unconscious bias. this, and he was trying to change as an individual. He saw that this wasn't the right move for him.
Briefly,
he separated way before Meghan he was in the picture.
Why did Meghan Markle let Harry announce the new book, the forthcoming book, whilst the Queen was grieving over Prince Philip and battling her own health issues? Why did Meghan let that happen? She's such a nice person.
No.
And also, why did Meghan dump her own father?
No, but this is the problem.
Why didn't she visit him when he had a heart attack?
This is the problem that you have, and most of all the people that write, this is the problem, what you just stated. Meghan doesn't allow Harry to do anything. Harry is his own man. In the documentary, he clearly states what he wants to do and what he wants to say, and he doesn't have permission from Meghan or anybody else. He wanted to release the book. That's his own choice.
Okay.
If you watch this,
he doesn't have to ask permission to Meghan to get a book released. If you watch this piece of propaganda, it's always everyone's fault. It's Harry's family's fault. It's Meghan's family's fault. It's the media's fault. Everyone who voted Brexit, it's their fault too. Not once, did H turn around and say, M, maybe it's us. Maybe we're the problem here. I'm actually just glad that Her Majesty the Queen wasn't around to see all of this, to see her grandson betray her legacy, betray his family, and traduce the institution that actually gave him and his wife everything that they have, and upon which their fame and success Meghan had
continues to rest,
something before.
and which they continue to milk.
Okay.
Meghan had way more success before. Now she's on the verge of trying to rise again.
Okay, it's time out. Yes, sir, well, the clock is against us, but what an illuminating debate. My deep thanks to television personality, very good friend of the show, Precious Muir, and the royal historian and broadcaster and GB News regular, Rafe Heidel-Mancu. What's your reaction, Mark at gbnews.uk? Lord Michael Howard live in the studio after 10 in a Mark Meets special. But next up, with the big stories of the week, Wayne Lineker. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back to the show. Lord Michael Howard is in the studio after 10 to tell his incredible story. He's been Home Secretary and, of course, leader of the Conservative Party. And, in my big opinion, a band called Slaves have changed their name for fear of offending people. The world has gone mad. I'll be dealing with that shortly. Let's take a look at some of the week's other big stories now in the company of a very interesting and entertaining guy. The highly successful entrepreneur, nightclub owner and international playboy, Wayne Lineker. Hi, Wayne.
How you doing? I'm good.
Listen, great to have you on the show. Lovely to meet you for the first time. Wayne, you own a very successful bar in Ibiza. Has trade recovered since COVID?
It's been a miraculous turnaround. From dire straits to having the most successful year of our lives. Yeah, it's been amazing.
I'm really pleased to hear that. You must look on at what's happening in the UK with these rail strikes and how it's impacting hospitality with great sympathy.
Yeah, I mean, we've got several venues in the UK. Skinny Kitchen, for example, are really suffering at the moment from all the train strikes. You know, we're normally very vibrant right now, but it's sporadic, very sporadic at the moment, and unfortunately, we're taking a bit of a hit in the UK at the minute.
Yes, and this will see bars and restaurants go to the wall, won't it? Because, Wayne, this is when you guys make your money, the Christmas season.
Yeah, it's a very good time for us, you know. I mean, we earn profit-wise, it's very big for us, December and January, up to New Year's Eve, and unfortunately, it's very difficult planning events, etc. When there's rail strikes going on.
And you've got an interesting setup because you've got businesses abroad, businesses here. What's your outlook for the UK economy and for UK hospitality? How do you think we're going to do in the next couple of years, Wayne?
I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing, it's a struggle at the moment. And especially with the way people are forecasting people's fortunes, as it were, it's a struggle to see that it'll pick back up like it used to be. Everyone still goes abroad on holidays. Any spare cash they've got, they seem to want to spend it on holidays. So as far as our businesses abroad are concerned, we're not too worried. But in the UK, it's going to take a hit for sure.
You know about leadership, Wayne. You know about management across all of your venues. What do you make of the leadership skills of Rishi Sunak?
I don't know, but I kind of like him. He's kind of a lively guy, and I don't know if you saw the video of a lookalike of his. It went viral, dancing at Ocean Beach. So I can't. In a weird way, I kind of like the guy because. I think that it's just something about him that I like. I mean, I'm not too politically clever, so I don't really want to go too far into that. But as a person, I quite kind of like him. Yeah, well, I think your instincts about a leader are just as important as their policies. Actually, I think every voter has a gut feeling about someone, don't they? Yeah, absolutely. I've always. All my life I've gone with gut feelings. Sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm right. But in general, I feel if you've got a gut feeling about someone and it's good, then just go with it. Your wonderful tribute to the Queen got a lot of attention. I think we got a short clip. Let's take a look. Have you got this, Marky? Here it comes.
Are you all having a great day? We're all having an amazing day today. But myself and Wayne and our other business partners are all British businessmen, and we could not let this day go by without speaking about yesterday's events in the UK.
Wayne, that was wonderful, and I'm very impressed by your backing dancers. Yeah, I mean, the tribute went viral. I think where it all went wrong was sending the dancers out dressed
as guards in thongs. I think that's where it all went wrong.
Listen, it was a tribute. It was a tribute, and I know it came from a good place, didn't it?
It was a tribute, Ibiza style. So yeah, we were happy with it. I mean, the people in the crowd on the day, they were really appreciative of it, and everyone got in the mood. But on Twitter was a different story. They didn't like it. But yeah, I mean, they had mixed opinions. But it went pretty viral, but it was controversial. So I accept the stick that we got for it. But it was done from a good place. Trust me.
Wayne, you've got a colourful social life. You've got businesses. You're a jet setter. What still motivates you? What drives you?
I'll sum that up in a nutshell. During COVID, I walked into the bar at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, just after Boris had called quarantine, and we normally have 1,500 people in there on a Tuesday. I walked in there at 7 p.m. at night, and there was 14 people in there. We've got 160 tables and beds, and there was 2 beds taken. It was I walked out the venue and I just cried my eyes out. You know, it was a horrific moment, and seeing it as it is now. This summer, I just stood back and looked at the people having an amazing time, and that's what motivates me, to see the people dancing, smiling, happy, and you know, it's so amazing to see that and feel, you know, that's what we've brought to the table here, and yeah, that's a special thing for me.
I completely agree. I hosted an event earlier this week and people are just so happy to get together again. Briefly, if you can, Wayne, what are your plans for Christmas?
I'm going back to Ibiza to see my granddaughters, Mila and Aria, because my son lives there. He's my partner in Ocean Beach. And yeah, we're going to have a nice family time, last family Christmas. And yeah, no partying for me. I do all that in the summer. I try and relax a little bit in the winter because, I mean, my doctors call me a medical marvel because I have tests done every summer that I get back from Ibiza, and they say it's remarkable, Wayne, how you're even alive, let alone in good health.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it. Everyone's going to Spain this Christmas. Tory MP Michael Fabricant, Wayne Lineker. Wayne, have a great Christmas. Look forward to catching up in the new year. Really nice chatting with you. Wayne Lineker, entrepreneur, socialite, entrepreneur, nightclub owner, you name it. What a guy. Coming up in My Big Opinion, a band called Slaves have changed their name because people are offended. I'll be dealing with that shortly, and my Mark Meets guest is Lord Michael Howard, live in the studio for a Mark Meets special. And in the big question, should we ditch our pets to save the planet? I hope my cat Harry's not watching. See you in 3. I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It's 9 o'clock on Mark Dolan tonight. In my big opinion, I'll be telling you about a music band called Slaves who are changing their name for fear of offending people. You couldn't make it up. My Mark Meets guest is Lord Michael Howard, a Tory big hitter who was leader of the party and, of course, an iconic Home Secretary. He'll tell me how the Conservatives can try and win back some of their lost support. In the big question, as people try to come up with more ways to reduce their carbon footprint, should we give up our pets to save the planet? And in the news agenda with my panel, are words like fat and ugly offensive or a statement of fact? Also, is it wrong to wear makeup in the workplace? And should we open Christmas presents early? Lots to get through. I'll see you after the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Mark, thank you. I am Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. Eurostar says it's been forced to cancel its services to London on Boxing Day because the RMT strikes will close the UK's high-speed line. It says more than 40,000 union members strike for a third time this week following an ongoing dispute over pay and conditions. RMT leader Mick Lynch says little progress has been made during negotiations, but he believes a compromise is achievable. More industrial action is planned for tomorrow. A man from Leicestershire who murdered his partner in his parents' home has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years. Ross McCullum was dating his colleague Megan Newborough when he strangled and cut her throat last year. The court heard how he tried to cover up her death by hiding her clothes in nearby bins and leaving a voicemail on her phone. Her family described him as the definition of a monster.
I know how difficult it's been for my parents and sister to sit at court every day, listening to the web of lies spun by someone Megan not only knew, but whom she trusted, someone who clearly had no love for her at all. We're the ones now serving the life sentence. No amount of time in prison can bring Megan back. We have to carry on with our lives as best as we can, but Megan will never leave our thoughts.
A man and woman have been arrested after 2 young boys were found dead at a residential address in East London. The Met Police and London Ambulance were called to Cornwallis Road in Dagenham this afternoon. The boys, aged 2 and 5, were pronounced dead at the scene. It's understood the man and woman were both known to the children and they remain in police custody. Police are investigating a suspected triple murder in Northamptonshire. The victims have been named as Anju Asok, who was an NHS nurse, and her 2 young children, Jiva and Janvi Saju. They were found at a house in Kettering yesterday morning. A 52-year-old man is being questioned in connection with their deaths. 3 people are in a critical condition and 1 person has been arrested after a suspected crowd crush at a music venue in South London.
Have asked us to close the show. We apologize to you. This is nothing to do with us.
The Met Police has launched an investigation after officers were called to the Brixton O2 Academy last night. Video footage shows a large crowd of people trying to force their way into the concert. Police say they are reviewing social media and CCTV video. And a former lady-in-waiting, Lady Susan Hussey, has apologised for repeatedly asking a charity boss where she was from during a royal reception. She met with Ngozi Fulani at Buckingham Palace today and pledged to deepen her awareness of the sensitivities involved. Miss Fulani accepted the apology and says she appreciates no malice was intended. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now let's get back to Mark.
My thanks to Bethany Elsie, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion in just a moment, I'll be telling you about a music band called Slaves, who have changed their name for fear of offending people. You couldn't make it up. In the big question, as people try to come up with more ways to reduce their carbon footprint, should we give up our pets to save the planet? My Mark Meets guest is Tory big hitter Lord Michael Howard. He was leader of the Conservative Party and, of course, legendary Home Secretary. He'll tell us what they can do to win the next election. And in the news agenda, are words like fat and ugly offensive or a statement of fact? And is it wrong to wear makeup in the workplace? And what about this one, just in time for Christmas? Should we open Christmas presents early? I've noticed more and more people doing it. Is that naughty? At 10:30 sharp, we'll bring you tomorrow's front pages with full reaction from my panel. Tonight, author, lawyer and deputy leader of UKIP, Rebecca Jane. Fleet Street's longest-serving political editor from the Sunday People and the Sunday Mirror, Nigel Nelson. And historian and journalist, David Oldroyd Bowles. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk. The best bit of my show is when you get in touch. And this programme has a golden rule. Faye, do you know what that is? Are you ready? We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. So there you go. For the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. The rock band Slaves have had to change their name for fear of offending people. Welcome to Bonkers 2022, where the woke mob will stop at nothing to cancel art and to police our language, rendering much of it off limits and sucking any remaining joy out of our lives. Of course, these people, these woke bullies, don't understand context. This talented young group of musicians came up with their name because they'd stumbled from one low-paid, unfulfilling job to another. After all, the word slave has multiple meanings, or it did before it became highly politicised, like so many words, by groups seeking to leverage language for their own ends. Being terrified of what you're going to say next and what the consequences might be plays straight into the hands of these intolerant bullies. They've got all of us running scared. Even the wrong joke will get you cancelled now, as hard-left progressives are not just ruthless, unthinking and cruel, but famously witless and humourless too. The great joy of the English language is just how layered it is, and the word slave can refer to the literal meaning, the horrific sale and purchase of human beings, one of the worst crimes in history. Or it can refer to someone that's subservient to a senior, an authoritative figure, a boss perhaps, or a controlling friend or spouse. That's right, slave is a flexible and complex word. The best words are. It's a crying shame that this band felt the need to rename themselves, and as show business is all about branding, I fear it's unlikely they'll gain the same traction under their new title of Soft Play. They've been robbed of a perfectly sensible and reasonable name, and one that relates to their own humble story and personal struggles. But none of that is allowed in the Church of Woke. Just like the incredible song Fairy Tale of New York. You know that song, it's a Christmas classic. It involves an imagined conversation between two absolute scumbags in which the slang word used to refer to a gay person, which rhymes with maggot, is yelled by one of the characters. It's in character, it has context. This is how art works. And all of us enjoying that song for the last 30 years, gay people, straight people, bisexual people, there isn't anyone around Christmas time, especially after a few drinks, that won't be singing along to that great chorus. Except that chorus has now been edited for radio play and Christmas parties so that it aligns with politically correct scripture. It reminds me of a classic episode of Fawlty Towers in which Basil is uncomfortable in the company of a black doctor. The channel carrying the episode pulled it from their platform because it was offensive. Except the whole message was an anti-racist one. The storyline was mocking Basil Fawlty's innate xenophobia. I've had enough of this censorship, this extreme political correctness, and this assault on our great art. We now live in an era where 1984, the book, comes with a trigger warning, and yet no one can see the irony. Our great authors, comedians and musicians are self-censoring, writing and creating with one hand tied behind their back for fear that they could feel the wrath of the woke warriors next. We live in an era where incredible songs like Brown Sugar by the Rolling Stones has effectively been banned because of references to slavery, and the Stones have vowed never to play that song again. That's progress, is it? All of this cancellation of art would make Chairman Mao proud. Our world is becoming less joyful, less spontaneous, less fun because of the moral police. Or the new Puritans, you could call them. As pointed out by the excellent Andrew Doyle in his new book of the same name. I've read it. It's an instant classic. The perfect Christmas gift, I would suggest. I've had enough of seeing creative people crushed like this. And I think that we, the public, should push back. I think that 2023 should be the year of wild political incorrectness. And we should be as outrageous as we possibly can be. It's time to overcorrect the other way. And once again, enjoy the full freedom of our great language. And let artists express themselves again without fear of the consequences. If we don't push back against these bullies, we will be their slaves forever. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'll get to your thoughts shortly. My brilliant panel are here tonight, reacting to all of the big stories of the day and my big opinion monologue. Author, lawyer and deputy leader of UKIP. She's getting closer to power by the day. It is Rebecca Jane. Someone that's already powerful is Nigel Nelson, Fleet Street's longest-serving political editor. He makes and breaks careers, let me tell you. And the cleverest man in the room, historian and journalist David Oldroyd-Bolt. Great to have all three of you with me. Let me start with you, if I can, Rebecca Jane. This band are called Slaves. They came up with that name because they'd been through a really tough time. Dead-end jobs, minimum wage, their lives were going nowhere. They were slaves.
Yeah, I know. This is ridiculous. Again, you know, it keeps on happening. Every single which way that we look, people are pandering to the woke agenda, and it just has to stop. We can't keep on going around being scared of what we say. I'm sick to death of seeing older generations terrified of asking a very simple question. And, you know, there's a certain situation in the news that probably we won't bring up because I'll start ranting. But it has to stop. We have to be allowed to express ourselves. If we get it wrong, have a discussion, have a conversation about it. But stop pandering to this woke agenda.
I think you're referring to Lady Susan Hussey, who has apologised to the woman who she asked her, where do you really come from? We'll cover that in the papers at 10 because they're starting to pop up in tomorrow's front pages already. What do you think about this, Nigel Nelson? Are we overreacting? Many people think that this idea of wokeism is very overstated.
Well, I mean, in this particular case, that I found this item rather like reading one of those
obscure obituaries in a newspaper, which was about somebody who has died who you didn't actually know was alive in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that Slaves completely passed me by. I would imagine that Soft Play will equally pass me by, although it sounds more cuddly. I do think things actually change. I noticed that you didn't use the word that rhymed with maggot in your big opinion. And when it comes to things like Basil Fawlty, I found that scene that you're talking about there extremely funny. I understand now why it's pulled, in the same way that you would never show a Benny Hill programme again because it was far too sexist and of its time. Till Death Us Do Part used to mock racism, but in such a way that the words they use could not be used now. I just think we've moved on. So there's a lot of words we can't use here on GB News.
Yes, well, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, and it shows your keen editorial eye, Nigel. It's almost like you've done this before. Myself and Greg Grimes and James Gibson, the production team, we were debating whether or not I should use the F word, which rhymes with maggots. And I originally wrote the monologue and I had it in there. And, we were 50-50 on it. Do you think I should have said that word in my monologue in order to prove a point?
Given the subject matter, yes, you should have done. I, by the way, wouldn't use that word in the newspaper.
Right. OK. Well, look, let's bring David Oldroyd-Bolt into this. Have we had this kind of Puritanism in the past? Has history had wokeism, or is this new, David?
History goes in pendulums with this, I think. If you look certainly from the 17th century onwards, when you had the original Puritans, and then through the Restoration, which was an entirely libertine time, and then back through the 18th, 19th, 20th century, I think you're going sort of 30-year pendulums where things open up, they become extremely libertine, they become very relaxed, standards change, and there is a greater licence. And then there is a reaction to that, which brings in greater Puritanism, greater censorship, and a less tolerant idea of culture. And I think it's two things here that are really important: culture and context. Slave is a band. They were making a point about the backgrounds from which they came and the fact that they'd managed to break free of it, I think. And you have to take into account context. What separates us from the animals is that we don't act instinctively, that we have this ability to be subtle and to think of things in different contexts depending on that. You know, nobody thought that when the black singer Grace Jones sang Slave to the Rhythm, she was making any point about the abhorrent history of the transatlantic slavery trade. Nobody thinks that the band Slayer wants to advocate that people should go out there on mass murdering sprees. So let's think that... and punk itself, this is a punk band. Punk was about kicking back against what was perceived to be a stultifying and an old-fashioned cultural establishment, with the Sex Pistols particularly at the forefront of that, with their song God Save the Queen in the Silver Jubilee year. So please, can we try and be... I think so much of this comes from what I would essentially call the intolerant, the bored and the under-occupied online. They have nothing better to do than look for things by which they can be confectedly outraged. And if cultural artists, cultural institutions were less worried about how they were perceived by that minority who is not in any case, or which is not in any case, their audience, and if they were more concerned about their artistic integrity and whether what they were saying, what they were representing, had some validity, I think the whole problem of wokeism infecting the cultural sphere would be a great deal less. And these are just people with too much time on their hands who like to rant on the internet. Stop paying attention to them.
Coming up in the news agenda with my panel, will we be working from home forever? How do you feel about the idea of being in your gym jams until retirement? My Mark Meets guest is political icon Lord Michael Howard. It's a Mark Meets special. We're doing it over 2 parts, and he's in the studio from 10. But next, in the big question, should we give up our pets to save the planet? See you in 3.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Big reaction to my Big Opinion monologue. A band called Slaves have changed their name because apparently it's offensive, even though they were referring to their own time as struggling low-paid workers. I can tell you that it's already on Twitter because lovely Paige and Ben from our digital team have crafted the Big Opinion monologue into a video clip. It's on Twitter now at GB News, as are clips of the week from earlier in the show at 8 o'clock, the highs and lows of a week of GB News. Do check both of those videos at GB News or at Mr. Mark Dolan. Couple of emails before we get to the big question. Benny Hill is so funny. The woke brigade are too intense. No wonder there's so many mental health issues. Lighten up and enjoy life, says Liz. Don't forget, time and tide waits for no one, and you only have one time on Earth. Great show. Liz, thank you for that. Thanks for the kind words, and thanks for being part of the family of viewers that are GB News. How about this from Tim? Hi, Mark, I agree with your monologue. This woke agenda is dreadful. However, I think us normal people are far too weak and bow down to it. And Terry says, Nigel says we've moved on, your panellist. I say we've been moved on. Thanks for that. Keep those emails coming, Mark at gbnews.uk. It's time now for this. Yes, it's time for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day and a fascinating story in The Independent. By owning a pet, you're doing more damage to the environment than you might realise. Climate columnist for the Indie, Donna McCarthy, writes in the paper, telling the truth about pets can be a painful process, but cats and dogs particularly are having a devastating impact on the planet. So, should we ditch our pets to save the planet? Could you live without your Moggy or your hound? To debate this, I'm delighted to say that Donna McCarthy has made time to join us, as well as Gogglebox star and famous celebrity dog lover, Sandy Bogle. Hi, Sandy.
Hi.
Great to have you on the show. Listen, would you be willing to give up your dog to save the planet?
You crazy. I don't know where that came from, honestly.
as I said, I'm a true believer that God brought humans and animals on this planet for a reason, and that is to be a companion to us. They do so much. They are loving companion animals. That's what what I believe, that they are here for us. I mean, look at the lonely people, people in hospitals, the blind. Come on now. They're even rescue dogs. They rescue us. Come on, we have to think on the bigger scale of why are they really here? They are here to help us when we are unable to get through certain situations, or as I said, they rescue us from mountains, places that as humans we can't even find us, but they'll find us.
However, Sandy, they eat a lot of food, don't they? And a lot of that food is meat, of course, meat and fish and poultry. And they do a lot of farting, and they do a few poos as well.
But don't we eat a lot of food and we waste it? And then what do we do? Who do we hang it off and give it to? The animal, the dog, to get rid of it. But we consume so much food and waste so much food on this planet.
Sandy, you've dropped a few truth bombs, and I think actually you've earned the first mic drop of the show, because you've raised a good point. And that's the issue, Donaher. I know you're coming from the right place with your suggestion that fewer pets would be good for the planet, but we need our pets.
The lady makes a valid point. There are some situations where animals do make a significant contribution, such as guide dogs and rescue dogs. The fact remains, with 8 billion people on the planet, can we afford nearly 1 billion pets? The fact is, what I wrote in the article is that we really should consider, those of us who can think about it, should consider seriously not replacing our pet when they pass on. The figures are staggering. A recent university study said that the average dog can emit as much as 6 tons of carbon. That's around 10 years worth of electricity emissions. The Mammalian Society said that an estimated 100 million wild animals, snakes, frogs, and birds are killed every year in Britain by cats. So if you love animals, we have to understand that the impact of pets is staggering on the wild world, on the wilder world, the natural world, which I think the lady here and I and you, Mark, will all agree we should love and protect.
Sandy.
I truly believe, I understand what you're saying, but who are breeding these animals? Who are breeding the cats? Who are breeding the dogs? Who are holding all these animals and breeding them in these factories and stuff like that? Who's human beings? Humans, we as the humans are doing this. Most of these animals are being run from where their habitat is. All the forestry, everything's being cut down. Even foxes, you see more foxes here than you do cats and dogs. Why? Because we're destroying our planet. If we structured things how it was supposed to be and how we're supposed to be on this planet, all this wouldn't be happening right now. We are destroying our own planet, and what's happening now is down to us. What we are creating. This is why it's happening.
Donaher, if you were to become Prime Minister, what would, or perhaps even a benevolent dictator, I'm sure you've got it in you, what would your rules be? If you ruled the world, what sort of legislation would you draw up to tackle this? Would it be like the sort of Chinese one child, one family policy? Could it be like a cat between 3 households? How many pets could we have?
I think the lady made some very good points there. The idea that we should actually, as many as possible of our domestic cats should be spayed, so they're not producing unwanted kittens. Secondly, we have to deal with the puppy factories. They should be closed down. We can agree on that. But and finally, I would think that whilst you have a pet until they pass away, we should definitely consider reducing the amount of wet meat that dogs eat. The difference between a dry diet and a wet diet for dogs is enormous. It's 0.8 of a ton for a dry diet, 6 tons for a wet diet. So those are the things that we should be looking at with our current pets. But the lady made a point about us knocking down forests and destroying the natural world. Well, a huge amount of forest is being demolished for meat. and a quarter of the world's meat is being fed to pets. There is a direct link between the number of dogs and cats we have and the destruction of forests.
So isn't this all about educating? Isn't this all about us educating and doing more and doing better? It's all about educating.
And that's why I wrote the column.
However, Sandy, I just wonder, actually, because, I mean, I'm a pet lover like you. I've got a cat called Harry, and he's quite carnivorous, I've got to say. He's got a big appetite. He's a bit of a fat lump, if I'm honest with you. We'll talk about whether the word fat is offensive later in the programme. But if it's a choice between him getting meat and me, I choose me. What about you?
Well, I mean, you would, but then at the same time, are you looking at in the long run? I mean, a pet is for life. I mean, so why are we deciding to have a pet if we're not going to be looking after it for life? This is why they always end up in bins and drowned and stuff like that, because we're not responsible on what we're doing with these with the animals, with cats, with dogs. If in the long run you know that you can't look after it, then it's like having a pet for Christmas. Why are you see how much animals get put into all these places, Battersea Dogs Home and stuff like that, because people get them because they think it's as cute, it's gorgeous, but they're not looking at it in the long run. So there's educating again.
Donna,
you can't just buy a pet for fun and think, oh yeah, it's so lovely and cuddly, and then when it grows to be massive, everybody wants to get rid of it, or it is eating too much food, or it is whatever. So you know, it's a cycle, isn't it?
Donna, I hope you're not a hypocrite. Are you hiding a secret pussy somewhere?
No.
The lady keeps making my points for me that so many people are having animals who don't know how to care for them and are not caring for them properly, and they get neglected. But one thing I would ask, just one small thing I would say as Prime Minister, hopefully democratically elected, that every cat at least should have a bell so that actually warns the wildlife that they're coming. I had, during lockdown, I was obviously stuck at home. I'm blessed to have a lovely garden. And one thing that gave me great joy was the frogs in my garden pond, and a pair of dunnocks that were nesting. And I have to tell you, halfway through lockdown, I was really enjoying that. It gave me a bit of love. And a cat came along, ate the frogs and ate the dunnocks. And it was absolutely heartbreaking. I love wildlife. And the amount of cats that we have is devastating our wild. So at least put bells on them, if that's the only thing that come out of today's programme.
I think the bell is a good idea. And we've debated on the programme in the past whether cats should spend more time indoors so that they don't kill birds, because I think it's 1 billion birds a year in America alone that are killed by domestic cats. Donna, the clock's against me. You didn't quite answer my question that if you ruled the world, what would our pet allowance be? Would it be, I don't know, a dog every 3 houses?
I think it'd be a cat every 1,000 houses, to be frank with you.
Wow.
If you look at what we need to be looking at, the reflecting the natural population in the wild. If you look in the wild, the amount of cats would be tiny compared to the amount of cats that we have in our own houses. I must have around 20 cats within 10 houses of my house, and they are constantly sitting, waiting by my tree and by my pond to eat the birds and eat my frogs. There's too many of them.
I tell you, they are very lucky to be eating your frogs. Donna, lovely to have you on the programme again. A fascinating article in The Independent. Sandy, before I let you go, what is your dog called and why do you love him so much?
Teddy. And he's a rescue dog. He's actually a rescue dog from one of the factories. Yeah, one of those places where they
like a farm.
It is, one of those farms. So and he knows when my nephew was actually taken away from us. He was murdered, and he is like, right. I was sitting on the sofa, and he's like, he knows, he knew I was so upset, and he'd just come over, put his paw on his head and comfort me. Now, if that is not saying that they understand how we feel and can give us comfort, I don't know what else what else I can say, what animals do for us, for disability, as I said, and for the blind. They comfort, they give us joy, they're companions to human beings. And we have to do better. We have to do better and be responsible. And be responsible for the animals that we have here, and stop destroying the planet.
Sandy,
yes.
We love you, and we love Teddy.
You too.
Sandy Bogle, do join us again soon. And lovely Donica, my gosh, you know, he's up and down like a bride's 90, let me tell you, answering a call of nature. You thought it was walkies, didn't you, Donica?
You said goodbye to me.
the crack. I did say goodbye. It was I gave you a bum steer. Thank you to both of you. Lovely debate. We've asked you, the viewers, on Twitter, should we ditch our pets to save the planet? 8.2% say yes, 91.8% say no. Coming up, Lord Michael Howard in the studio and the papers. But next, will we be working from home forever? How do you feel about that? See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lynn has answered a following question, which is, should we ditch our pets to save the planet? Lynn says, Mark, I agree with your guest Donica about cats. They are predators, not pets, and destroy wildlife. They are hateful. Goodness gracious. Ken says, Mark, I have 2 cats with plenty of used cat litter. After your debate, I think I'll send the used cat litter to your guest Donica. There was talk about neutering the cats, wasn't there, in your neighbourhood? I'd neuter a few of the locals as well, but that's another story. Lots more to get through. Before 10 o'clock, I'm going to debate with my panel an interesting topic. Are words like fat and ugly offensive or just a statement of fact? We'll get to that shortly. But let's start with this. Back in 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson asked all of us to start working from home where we possibly can. 2 years of remote working has now led to new legislation where workers can request flexible working from day one of their employment. They can demand work from home on day one, which leads me to ask, will we be working from home forever? And is that a good or a bad thing? Let's speak to Navid Sol, pharmacist and star of The Apprentice and Celebs Go Dating. Hi, Navid.
Hi, how are you, Dolan? You all right?
Very well indeed. Great to have you on the show. I've watched you on The Apprentice. And you're a team player. You like to be around your colleagues, you're creative, you're collaborative. That doesn't happen at home, does it?
No, to be honest, no. Generally at home, to be honest, it's kind of like a mess. But obviously, as a pharmacist, you know, when it comes to the healthcare profession, I'm always trying to be collaborative, work as a group. So, yeah, so it kind of really depends from, you know, on a day-to-day basis, really.
Well, there you go. What do you think it does to businesses? I mean, what is the future? Is it a hybrid, half-half, or do you think some businesses can work from home all of the time?
You know what? I personally think, honestly, working from home has become this new fashion where I just think people are like getting more like, not to be rude, but I think people are starting to get a bit maybe lazy if they start working from home. I mean, there's positive and negative. I mean, with the positive, there could be like less transmission of COVID or any sort, the cold and flu, influenza. But I just feel like people would just kind of take that for granted. So I just feel people just need to be strong enough and just actually go to their workplace and work rather than just working from home. That's my personal opinion.
Navid, let's bring in my fantastic panel, if I can. We've got Rebecca Jane. We'll bring them in just a moment. Rebecca Jane, Nigel Nelson and David Oldroyd-Bolt. Let me ask you about that, Nigel. You're in journalism, which, again, is a people business, isn't it? What's your view about the idea of working from home forever?
I broadly split it up. So what I do is that politics is a contact sport, so I have to go into the House of Commons certainly 2 days a week, maybe 3. If I've got a day's writing, in the old days, I'd have struggled into work, sat in my office, not talked to anybody, and written away. Now I can do that from home. When train strikes are going on, I would have always felt impelled to try and get to work. Now I don't have to because I can work from home. And in a sense, this is the great kind of COVID reset. We can start looking at what our working practices are and broadly what works best. And obviously, if you're on a building site, you can hardly do that from home. If you're a journalist, you can do a substantial part of it sitting at your desk.
Navid, what do you think about productivity from people who work from home? And can the economy afford it? It's bad news for local cafes and bars, isn't it?
Yes, it is, though. And I actually think in terms of productivity, I feel like if people are at home, there'll be more distractions for them. So there could be maybe family dilemmas or having the television on or just not being really focused on what they do. But I feel like I just feel like especially with the economy, I feel like just people need to go out there, go to their actual jobs and just not to find this as a way of an excuse to stay at home and kind of be lazy. But, not to be rude in any way, but that's what I think, that people can make many excuses if they just work from home.
David Oldroyd-Bolt, the message from top entrepreneur Navid Sol is get back to the office or you're fired.
Well, I disagree with Mr. Sol. I don't think it is a case of working from home being lazy. In fact, I think it's precisely the opposite. Those working from home have fewer boundaries between working time and personal time. I think they're often encouraged to work far longer than they would for the same money. It's often a way, I think, therefore, of people getting more out of their employees without having to pay for that extra time. And I think Nigel makes an interesting point that in the old days you would have struggled into the office. You would have worked harder when you were there, but then I think you would have felt more comfortable saying when you finished, whatever that time was, 5, 6 o'clock, that's it, I'm done for the day, I'm now spending time on my own life. And this sort of American idea of presenteeism, of FaceTime, has now gone from being that you must be in the office at all times, being seen to work, and now it's that you must be known to be working at all times by sending emails about work subjects at unholy hours, and by really saying my work is my life rather than I work so that I may live. I think there is an argument that if you're in the creative industries, you can actually, you know, if you're writing, if you're working on a script, if you're writing a piece of music or painting a picture, then you can work equally well wherever you are. And indeed, if you don't have to get up, schlep into an office, you know, whatever that's going to take you, an hour and a half, you may get better work done there. But if you're working in a collegiate way, if you're working with a group of people and the quality of your work depends on that collaborative nature, then I think the office is the place to do it.
Rebecca Jane, briefly, if you can, I know you're an entrepreneur as well as now an emerging, budding politician. I've got so many viewers that email into the show telling me that they work from home and they love it. They might have pets or even kids that they can pick up from school at 3 o'clock.
Good for them. I hate it. I think it's absolutely terrible. I'm absolutely sick of it. I think that people are hiding behind it. I think that it's incredibly... It's a lot of lazy people who are abusing the privilege of working from home and having flexible living, and I think that it has to stop.
Yeah.
OK, listen, Navid, great to have you on the show. Two quick questions. How's business? How's your career going?
Business is going really well, Dolan. I myself, I'm in the pharmaceutical world, so I manage 2 pharmacy businesses. And as you can imagine right now, with pharmacy, we're kind of struggling with the shortage of antibiotics for children for strep A. So we're kind of going through that dilemma. And we're trying to basically calm patients and do our best to help. But as usual, pharmacy is busy, patient need our help. So it's a very fast operating business, to be honest.
Well, I'm really pleased to hear that. Listen, you're a pharmacist. Could you sort me out with some amoxicillin, please?
Definitely, Dolan, but I just need to make sure it's in stock, because right now, literally all sorts of amoxicillins are literally, they've run out. And I don't know what the government is doing, and there's literally no support for us as a community pharmacy.
There you go. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm thrilled to have you on the show, Navid, and do join us again soon. Navid Soul is a pharmacist, star of The Apprentice, of course. He was brilliant on that programme. And Celebs Go Dating. Lots more to come. Don't forget Lord Michael Howard live in the studio for a Mark Neats special at 10. What does he think of this current Conservative government? But next up in the news agenda with my panel, are words like fat and ugly offensive or just a statement of fact? See you shortly.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back to the show. Lord Michael Howard is live in the studio at 10 o'clock. Plus, we've got my take at 10 as well, with a message around which we can all unite. Let's all be friends in 2023. Tomorrow's a really special show. We start at 8, of course, every Friday and Saturday. And it's the People's Hour, in which I'm taking your video calls from 8 till 9. Looking forward to that. But look, let's get back to the big stories of the day. And reacting to all of those are author, lawyer and deputy leader of UKIP, Rebecca Jane. Fleet Street's longest-serving political editor, Nigel Two Jobs Nelson. And historian, journalist and professional brainbox, David Aldroyd-Bolt. He's dashing as well. He's a triple threat, folks. Now, a gym owner has defended a controversial billboard he put up to promote his business after it was vandalised. Ollie Lawrence, who runs the PT Factory in Denton, Manchester, paid for an advert which read, "Tired of being fat and ugly? Now, just be ugly." So it begs the question, are words like fat and ugly offensive or just a statement of fact? David, you're neither, but what do you think?
Well, I won't make a judgment on that. I think it's back to that funny little word, context. If you went up to someone in the street and said, "You're fat and ugly," I think they'd be perfectly justified in smacking in the face. If someone putting that billboard up when the picture of the woman is clearly neither fat nor ugly, I think it's perfectly obvious to all concerned who are not, going back to what we were saying earlier, getting into the professional offence brigade. It's a joke. It's just trying to get someone into the gym. And, God, isn't it tedious? Isn't it unutterably tedious that these people consistently fail with their sense of humour? Everybody who's got a brain knows that that was a joke, and everybody knows that it was not meant to make anybody feel bad about themselves.
Well, that's right. I mean, when I was at school, Nigel, full disclosure, I was known as a lanky streak of piss.
There you go.
And not much has changed.
I do think that
It's OK. I can handle the truth.
It's quite clear that billboard was a joke, and it should have been taken as such. So I agree with David there. On the other hand, when you say that ugly is a statement, well, it can't be, can it, really? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
That old chestnut.
Therefore, ugliness must be in the eye of the beholder too. There is no kind of absolute for ugliness.
Well, I think there is. It's called brutalist architecture. Nobody looks at the Barbican and says, "That's wonderful, look at that work of beauty."
Some people might like it. I'm sure the architect likes it.
Well, they're clearly mad then.
Yeah, I mean, this is the issue, isn't it? But we're getting so sensitive now. I mean, the bottom line, for example, Nigel, is if you have a high BMI, you are fat. But we're not allowed to use that word anymore.
Fat is a bit different.
It's the new F word, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you accuse someone of being fat, it is offensive. But I mean, at least with compared to ugliness, if you are obese, there is a BMI judgment on that. I mean, that can actually be an absolute.
And I wonder if it's being conceived as being offensive nowadays compared with how offensive it was considered when we were younger, is because so many more people are, in fact, obese. that it's become such a general problem that what could have been a particular thing, you know, maybe 1 or 2 children in the year were fat, and so, you know, it was what it was. Now, when 2/3 of adults are clinically obese, to say that is to perhaps to demonise most of the adult population, so people are more sensitive.
It was always offensive, wasn't it? I mean, it's always been offensive. If you call someone fat and ugly...
Well, you had Fatty Arbuckle, the comedian, and you had, you know, the fat kid in the Beano. It was considered less so, I think, because it was just, you know, there was 1 or 2 people there.
I think Rebecca, Jane and David are too young to remember these references, but I grew up with comics in which characters were described as plug ugly, and they were just the ugly character.
Yeah.
The Bash Street Kids, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Why is ugly such a problem? Some people are ugly. That's OK. You know what they do? They go and cure cancer and write great books and stuff.
Well, yeah.
Who's that singer? Who's that singer that's not exactly an oil painting? Louis Capaldi. Is that him?
Oh, yeah.
He's no oil painting, is he?
He's not.
But he's a talented guy.
He is,
But director Faye's got the hots for him.
Faye's got problems.
Can I be honest? I've seen her at the GB News Christmas party. She ain't fussy. No.
Well, you know what they used to say? Politics is show business for ugly people. And so, you know, I mean, 649 people in Parliament clearly are not definitively ugly. and so it's
Someone
a phrase that's used.
What I like about you say it like it is, right?
No.
There are ugly people out there. Get over it.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly Brad Pitt.
Listen. No, well, you know, you are too
No, I am. I'm the Pits.
You are.
What, you haven't asked her?
Stop.
The Brad Pitt of GB News.
Why do you think I work weekends? She's trying to get rid of me.
Oh, knock it off.
Sadly, we don't anymore. But anyway, but no. What is the problem?
Too much information.
Oh.
What's the problem with the word ugly? I think it's just honest. There are ugly people out there.
It is honest to a degree, but yes, I'm all for free speech. So say whatever you want to an extent. I think it depends on the intention behind it. And if you are intending to insult, then it's a different matter. And let's not be nasty.
It's not a nice word, is it?
However, what I will say is that since my position in UKIP, I have now become extremely aware of how many awful people there are on Twitter. Yeah. I thought I'd seen it all. And now I constantly, the amount of conversations that I have to have about my appearance are ludicrous. Really? Yeah, and, you know, and I get called those names all the time, and it just goes over my head now, but it's very much alive in society, and there's very much a whole load of people who say it with such horrible intention, and that's got to stop. This was a joke, and it's gone too far. And we have to keep on standing up against the woke agenda because it's just got to stop.
Well, how about this, though, which is that I think I will agree. I'm being deliberately provocative. I think the word ugly it's not a nice word. It's a loaded word, and it is opinion. As you said, it's subjective. Whereas I guess fat is simply BMI, isn't it? That's just like the scales, don't lie. Whereas I think the ugly thing is... But do you think, David, that people in society ought to aim to be attractive?
Oh,
do you think that's something that people should... Because, you know, Karol Sikora, he tweeted today, the top cancer expert and professor of oncology, he said that actually most people who are fat can do something about it. And he's like, sort it out.
I don't think that's a case of seeking to be attractive. I think that's a case of seeking to be healthy.
Well, yeah, but
and to take pressure off the NHS at a time when it's under massive pressure.
Right. So we can agree on the fat thing, which is I try to have a good diet and take exercise. But shouldn't we try to be more attractive too? I mean, oughtn't people to brush their hair and look after their clothes?
That's a different thing. That's not about attractiveness. I think that's about neatness. That's about, depending on the context, that's about respect for the context.
If they make an effort, they'll be less ugly.
But I would say, well, should people try to be more attractive? Should they try to be more intelligent or musically gifted? It's about what you conceive to be the important priorities of life. But I agree with you on basic standards of turnout. We seem to be a very slovenly nation now. Yeah. If you compare photographs of general crowd scenes from now with 20 years ago, people are much less careful about their appearance.
Sunday best. Do you remember the Sunday best?
I should have worn a tie when I came in here.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah. You got dressed down Friday. Listen, I'm going to get back to my panel because we've got lots more to come. After 10, live in the studio, Lord Michael Howard tells his amazing story. It's in 2 parts. It's a Mark Meets special. Looking forward to that one. And in my take at 10, I've got a positive message for this country. It's time for all of us to be friends again, a message around which we can all unite. Don't forget, we got the papers at exactly 10:30 sharp. You can set your watch to it with full panel reaction. Keep those emails coming, Mark at gbnews.uk. See you in 2 ticks.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. It might take a 10 in just a moment, a positive message around which everyone can agree. I'll come to that shortly. Some important good news for the new year. My Mark Meets guest is a Tory big hitter who was leader of the party and an iconic Home Secretary. He'll tell me how the Conservatives could try to win back support from their lost voters. Lord Michael Howard, live in the studio for a Mark Meets special. In the news agenda with my panel, is it wrong to wear makeup in the workplace, or should you? What are the rules? Is it sexist? And also, is it wrong to open Christmas presents early? Plus tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30. Lots to get through, including that take at 10. But first, the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Mark, thank you. I am Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. Eurostar says it's being forced to cancel its services to London on Boxing Day because the RMT strikes will close the UK's high-speed line. It's as more than 40,000 union members strike for a third time this week following an ongoing dispute over pay and conditions. RMT leader Mick Lynch says little progress has been made during negotiations, but he believes a compromise is achievable. More industrial action is planned for tomorrow. New data shows at least £4.1 million in taxpayers' money was handed to Avanti West Coast last year, despite being the worst train operator for delays. The Office for Rail and Road says only around 60% of its stops were on time between April and June 2021. But the government says they signed off on the bonuses based on operational performance and customer experience. Labour has called the payments a scandalous waste of money. A man from Leicestershire who murdered his partner in his parents' home has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years. Ross McCullum was dating his colleague Megan Newborough when he strangled her and cut her throat last year. The court heard how he tried to cover up her death by hiding her clothes in nearby bins and leaving a voicemail on her phone. Her family described him as the definition of a monster.
I know how difficult it's been for my parents and sister to sit at court every day, listening to the web of lies spun by someone Megan not only knew, but whom she trusted, someone who clearly had no love for her at all. We're the ones now serving the life sentence. No amount of time in prison can bring Megan back. We have to carry on with our lives as best as we can, but Megan will never leave our thoughts.
A man and a woman have been arrested after 2 young children were found dead in East London. Emergency services were called to Cornwallis Road in Dagenham this afternoon. The boys, aged 2 and 5, were pronounced dead at the scene. It's understood the man and woman were known to both children and they remain in police custody. And police are investigating a suspected triple murder in Northamptonshire. Anju Asok, who was an NHS nurse, and her 2 young children, Jiva and Janvi Saju, were found at a house in Kettering yesterday morning. A 52-year-old man is being questioned in connection with their deaths. And 3 people are in critical condition and 1 person has been arrested after a suspected crowd crush at a music venue in South London.
I've asked us to close the show. We apologize to you. This has nothing to do with us.
The Met Police has launched an investigation after officers were called to the Brixton O2 Academy last night. Video shows a large crowd of people trying to force their way into the concert. Police say they are reviewing videos on social media and CCTV. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now let's get back to Mark.
My thanks to Bethany Elsey, who returns at 11. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Big stories, big guests, and always big opinions. In the news agenda with my panel, is it wrong to wear makeup in the office? And should we be opening Christmas presents early? Plus, tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. And my Mark Meets guest is a Tory big hitter who was leader of the party and an iconic Home Secretary. Lord Michael Howard, live in the studio for a Mark Meets special. But first, my take at 10. I think this qualifies for tweet of the year, if not of the century. The commentator Andrew Yang posted, "You remember when a friend could do or say something you disagree with and still be your friend? Let's get back to that." Wonderful. Everything has become so tribal. Back in the day, it was religion, nationality and politics. But now everything seems to be an issue over which we can fall out. COVID pandemic measures, masks and vaccines. It's meat eaters versus vegans and vegetarians. People that like Harry and Meghan and others that would see them banished forevermore. And of course, the B word, Brexit, around which we've seen more division than in any general election. America has become horribly split over its political leaders, with half the country loving Trump and half loving Joe Biden, even though the painful truth is that they're both pretty dreadful. Our terribly, painfully divided society is not an accident. It's the work of software engineers in California and beyond, creating algorithms that accelerate hatred and serve as a catalyst to conflict, triggering people and making them angry is now a business model. As we tear ourselves apart, hoodie-wearing billionaires in the United States are laughing all the way to the bank. It's time for a ceasefire. We need to be friends again, to get along. I can honestly say that back in the day, I can't remember what my friends' politics were. And if I did, I couldn't care less. Back in the day, supporting Labour or Conservative or Lib Dem was like Spurs, Manchester United or Liverpool. Before social media, we accepted a diversity of views. We had a concept of otherness, where you think something yourself, which is different to what I think, and that's okay, or even normal, perhaps desirable. We've got to get out of these tribes, because if we don't come together and accept each other for who we are and what we are, then I worry for the future of our society. We should embrace people who are different from us, who think different things. That would be fun, and who knows, we might even learn something. Here in the United Kingdom, after a bruising 2.5 years, with unscrupulous, politically motivated sections of our society seeking to leverage gender, race, and God knows what else to create division, it's time to stop fighting, to stop shouting, and start talking and listening. If Britain can come together, we will achieve so much, as we have in the past. But carry on like this, and all of that will be lost forever. Let's try to have a nice new year. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, sport, showbiz and beyond. Tonight, one of the best known and most respected and experienced politicians of his generation, the former Conservative Home Secretary and leader of the Conservative Party, who held cabinet positions under John Major and Margaret Thatcher, Lord Michael Howard, the Right Honourable, the Lord Howard of Lyme. Welcome to the show, sir.
Lim.
Lim! I knew I'd fall at the last hurdle. I've been practising that all day, but not well enough. Quite a fancy title, isn't it?
Well, Lim is the village we live in Kent, and part of my former constituency. So it seemed the obvious choice of place.
Yep, and I'm now never safe visiting Lim. Let's be clear about that, not without armed security. You have had quite the career. Why politics, Michael? Because you could have made a fortune in industry.
I'm not sure I could have in industry. I might have been able to make a bit of money if I'd stayed at the bar. Because politics gives you the greatest opportunity to make a difference, to help create a better society. And I desperately wanted to try and give something back to this wonderful country which has been so good to me and my family.
And what was it about your upbringing that made you a Conservative?
Well, my parents ran a small business, and I could see the connection between hard work and enterprise and the need for reward. I was never tempted by socialism. So they were never conservatives, actually, until I got active in conservative politics. But I think the values which they lived by were conservative values.
And therefore, were there any formative experiences that shaped your politics? I mean, why didn't you fancy socialism at that time?
Because it's never really worked, has it? It's been tried and it's never really worked. And it seems to me that the real difference to how a society works springs from the effort and enterprise of individuals, and we have to encourage that effort and enterprise, and that's absolutely crucial.
You became an iconic Home Secretary, which was, I guess, a career high point at a very important time for the history of this country.
Well, we've had many high points and not so high points, and I was very privileged to have that opportunity.
A tough, no-nonsense Home Secretary.
Well, it was quite interesting because I'd never expected to be Home Secretary. And so I went into the job with a completely open mind and spent the first few weeks, months really, listening, especially listening to police officers. I spent a lot of time in police canteens because they're the people who are in the front line of maintaining law and order. And a lot of what I did over the next 4 years was a result of what I'd learned during that period of listening.
93 to 97. What kind of a leader, what kind of a Prime Minister was John Major?
John Major let me get on with things. I could count on the fingers of one hand the number of times where he might have asked a question or asked to chat to me about something or other. He was, in my area at least, he was hands-off. He let me get on with things, and I had no problem. I hope he didn't have any problem with me.
And it was a bumpy time for that Conservative administration, wasn't it, economically and the rest?
It was, and it was a bumpy time for me in the Home Office because I was trying to change so many things which had been there for quite a while. And if you try and change things, you meet resistance because there are a lot of vested interests, people who think things should carry on being done as they've always been done. So it was a tough time, but I was determined to do what I could to start bringing crime down. I was told when I went there that that was something that was impossible, that they showed me a graph which showed that crime had gone up at an average of about 5% a year for the last 50 years, and they said to me, the first thing you must realise, Home Secretary, is that there's nothing you can do about it. And I didn't take that advice, and I was determined to try and change things so that crime did come down, and it did.
And useful that you were a lawyer, that you had experience and understanding of the criminal justice system.
It helped.
And what about those forces of resistance against you? Was that an early example of the blob?
It certainly wasn't called that then. I never heard that word until decades later. And it wasn't so much the civil servants, to be fair, because I think if a minister is clear about what he wants to do and determined to do it, and sets about it in the right way, the civil service will do their best to do what the minister wants. So I wouldn't class the civil service, except at the beginning. At the beginning it was difficult, but after a while the forces of resistance were outside the civil service.
You became Secretary of State for Employment in 1990, and of course Margaret Thatcher was the outgoing Prime Minister. We'll never see the like of her again, will we?
We won't. She wasn't outgoing when I became Secretary of State for Employment, but she did leave 10 or 11 months later. I was a great supporter of hers. I was very privileged to serve in her cabinet, and I think she was a great Prime Minister. Now, obviously, views vary on that divisive topic.
And recollections vary.
Recollections vary too, yes. But I thought she was a great Prime Minister.
Clearly a transformative figure, 3 landslide election victories, an economic success story, and of course a war that she won in the Falklands. Did she lose her golden touch towards the end, would you say?
Yes, to some extent.
Did you see that? Did you witness that at first hand?
You could see it. I think a lot of people thought she would retire after 10 years, and I think that's what Dennis wanted her to do. And I think that would have been the wise thing to do, and if she'd done that, her reputation would, I think, have been enhanced. I think when you've been Prime Minister for that length of time, it becomes more difficult, perhaps, to listen to the views of others, which she'd always been rather good at, and to temper your own instincts by testing them against the arguments of others, again, which she'd been very good at, less good at in the last period.
I don't want to be disrespectful to her memory, but was there an extent to which she lost her marbles slightly towards the end?
I don't think so, no, I wouldn't say that. Towards the end of her life, of course, she did suffer from that sort of thing, but not when she was Prime Minister, not that I saw.
No, and a colossal work ethic even towards the end.
Oh, amazing, yes.
Yeah, and is it true that she was head of every department, that she knew everyone's brief inside out?
Pretty much, yes. I remember once she asked me around for a drink in Prime Minister's office in the House of Commons, and I was about to take responsibility for a bill that she had asked me to take through Parliament, and we'd produced a document. And I tried to mug it up as best I could, but she said to me, "Now, Michael, this footnote on page 58, what exactly does that mean?" And I'm afraid I didn't have the first idea.
You were nonplussed.
What it meant.
You were nonplussed. Well, at least you didn't mispronounce the name of Lim. The Right Honourable, the Lord Howard of Lim is with us. Lord Michael Howard. It's a Mark Meets special. No one gets two parts except somebody of Michael's stature. So why don't you get your questions in now to Michael Howard. Mark at gbnews.uk. We'll talk illegal immigration. What would Lord Howard do? Also, Brexit, is it working? And Michael Howard's appraisal of our new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Plus the papers at 10:30 sharp. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
We've got the papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction, but it's a Mark Meets special. I'm delighted to welcome the former leader of the Conservative Party, former Home Secretary as well, the Right Honourable, the Lord Howard of Lim, Michael Howard. Michael, an email has come in, and this is lots of emails saying they want you to be Prime Minister. You did have a crack at it.
They're 20 years too late.
You did reverse Labour's lead.
We
in 97
halved Labour's majority in 2005.
2005, that was it. That was it.
Was the election.
Yeah,
But
you made inroads,
that
didn't you?
wasn't
And
enough.
You paved the way for David Cameron.
You don't fight an election to halve the other side's majority. You fight an election to win.
For sure.
We didn't.
No.
But we did make progress.
Did you enjoy being leader of the Conservative Party?
It was very hard work. Very, very demanding. Full on, 24 hours a day. But I was very lucky in one respect. We didn't really have social media then. I'm very pleased we didn't.
Do you think you took one for the team being leader of the Tories then? Because I just think that was a time when the Conservatives were always going to be out of power. And as I've mentioned, you did reverse that decline.
Well, I don't think I'd put it quite that way. I was there, I came in at quite a low ebb for the party, and I was there to try and bring things together and put us in a place where even if we couldn't win my election, we might be able to win the one after that. Which is, of course, what happened, yeah.
Yeah, you paved the way for David Cameron. Did you advise David Cameron when he became leader of the party?
I don't think he needed my advice. David knew what he had to do and knew how to do it, and did very well.
I've got an email here, and it's from, let me have a look, who has asked this. I'll get the name shortly, but a couple of people are asking, what was your appraisal of Boris Johnson as Prime Minister?
Boris is a most remarkable man with phenomenal gifts and abilities. And he achieved some great things when he was Prime Minister. He got Brexit done. He was Prime Minister. I think Rishi Sunak deserves a lot of the credit for the furlough scheme and the way we got through the pandemic. But Boris was Prime Minister, was entitled to credit for that. He was absolutely first in line to support Ukraine. And deserves enormous credit for that. So a lot of things he did, he deserves a lot of credit for. But as we know, he had his flaws and his faults, and in the end, they were his undoing.
Was he dishonest with you when he served under you as party leader?
Not with me personally, no.
So that's a straight answer to a straight question. What about the current incumbent then? Rishi Sunak is now the Prime Minister. What's your view of him?
I'm a huge supporter of Rishi Sunak. I think we're very lucky to have him as Prime Minister. We're in a tough spot as a country. The pandemic, the war in Ukraine, all these things present really formidable challenges for us. And I think that Rishi is absolutely the best person to navigate us through those challenges. I think he's a brilliant man, very conscientious and hardworking, and I really do think we're very lucky to have him.
And what needs to happen for the Conservatives in order to reverse that Labour lead? Can it be done? Is it insuperable?
No, it's not insuperable, and it can be done. Let me paint a picture of what might happen, what I hope will happen, obviously. In a year's time, it's highly likely that inflation will be coming down pretty significantly. I hope that interest rates will be coming down. I hope the economy will be recovering. And I think Rishi will be able to say to people, we've been through a very tough time. We've all had to make sacrifices, but we're coming through it. And now is the time to reap the rewards of those sacrifices. Don't throw it away and don't let Labour ruin it. Now, whether that pitch will succeed in 2024 or whenever it will be, I don't know. But I think there's a reasonable prospect that that may be the case.
Smart money might be on a May 2024 poll or perhaps October. It's unlikely they'll stretch it to January 25, do you think?
I have no idea.
No. I mean, you wouldn't want to be a hostage to fortune if you were leader at that point, would you?
No. You wouldn't, but, you know, you've got a lot of things to weigh.
Nice to have the option, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, John Major did take it to the wire pretty well in 1997.
And what about immigration? Sometimes in the summer, when the water is calm, upwards of 1,000 people entering the country illegally via the Channel. It's a big job of work for Suella Braverman. This week, Rishi Sunak has announced his 5-point plan, including a deal with Albania to return Albanians. Is that enough? What would you be doing?
I hope that'll be enough. I think it's a good package. I hope it will be enough. The one way in which you could put an end to this traffic is to have an agreement with France that they take everyone back. And actually, we had such an agreement with France when I was Home Secretary. And they did take everyone back. Now, it may be a bit of a challenge to put that agreement in place. I think it is actually still in place nationally, but it's obviously not being enforced. And if you could do that, then it's to France's advantage, because once the people who go to France in order to get into the UK realise that is not a route, they might stop going into France. And it's not really in France's interest to have the camps in Calais and all the rest of it. But whether that can be revived, I don't know.
You're a top lawyer. The clock's against us. What about chucking out the European Convention on Human Rights? Would that help? Is it possible? Is it a good look for Britain?
It's possible. It's not necessarily a good look and not necessarily a good thing. It's
Has it been overstated by some on the Tory right, do you think, as a solution?
It's very difficult. We looked at it when we were in government and under John Major, and it was pointed out to us that the only people at that stage, at any rate, who'd left the European Convention on Human Rights were the Greek colonels, which wasn't entirely a precedent that we wanted to follow.
Can Brexit be a success? Will it be?
Oh, I think so. You have to take into account the problems we've encountered in the last couple of years since Brexit. I've already mentioned the pandemic, the war in Ukraine. These would have presented us with formidable problems whether we were in the European Union or not. But at a given time, we will be in control of our own affairs. That's the bottom line. And of course we can make a success of it. We're a great country. I think we've got a great future.
A profound privilege to have you on the programme.
Thank you.
I wish you a Merry Christmas and your lovely wife and family. And I do hope we get to reconnect in the new year. A fount of all knowledge, a fascinating individual, one of the most experienced, respected and best-known politicians in the country, Michael Howard. We've got the papers next. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's just gone 10:30, so it's time for the headlines. The front pages tomorrow, as always, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 10:30. Set your watch to it. Brackets 10:31. Let's have a look at the Telegraph, and they have the following. Sussexes will receive invite to coronation. Far from being cancelled, the royal family will not respond to calls for titles to be stripped in bid to retain dignity. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will appear at the coronation of King Charles III, despite their public criticism of the royal family. This, according to the Daily Telegraph. Lovely photograph of the King on the front page of the Telegraph. The King dances with Holocaust survivors at a Jewish community centre in North London and praised the work of the charity that runs it as wonderful. Ambulance strikes will put public at risk. The public faces big risks from ambulance strikes next week, according to Oliver Dowden, as hospitals are told to empty as many beds as possible. The Cabinet Office Minister, Oliver Dowden, who's in charge of contingency planning for the strikes, said that despite the government's best efforts, significant dangers lay ahead. Interest rate rises could crash house prices, a crisis that will expose buy-to-let landlords of 365,000 properties to losses, could trigger a wave of sales that risks driving down house prices. Well, that's a good or a bad story, depending on where you're standing. And also, Brixton crush pushed woman down steps. A crush at a London music venue in which 3 people were critically injured is expected to be investigated after police were accused of pushing a woman down a flight of stairs. A devastating story, that one. The Daily Express next. Hurt King still seeks peace with Harry. Forgiving father, King Charles, will overlook Prince Harry's hurtful outbursts and strive to reunite his warring family. Charles loves his son dearly, but hopes he can put the past behind him. The Times now. Sunak needs to get a grip. Thousands of hospital patients will be sent home early as the NHS prepares for next week's walkouts, with the head of the nursing union warning action will escalate in the new year. The Daily Mail now. As ambulance walkout looms, a stark warning. Hospitals told empty beds before 999 strike. The action by paramedics is threatening chaos, with the sick even at more risk than usual during walkouts by nurses this week. Also, why Meghan is still invited to the coronation. The Sun now. Glitter free in weeks. Pop pedo Gary Glitter will be released from jail within weeks after serving half of his 16-year term. He's 78, guilty of sex attacks on 3 girls aged 8 to 13. He's likely to be tagged. He still has millions in the bank and could live in his London apartment. A source has confirmed he is free to walk. The Guardian. Drugs found after parties at Truss's government home. Exclusive. Traces of white powder found after events at Chevening House and 10 Downing Street, say staff. The Eye Weekend. Britain hit by a triple whammy of flu, colds and COVID. Royals follow Queen's example. Keep mum, as in keep stum, I suppose. King and Wills put dignity first and will not hit out at Harry. And the Daily Star. Oh, the toilet. Coppers warn dodgy perfume bought down the boozer more likely contains human pee. Hooky bottles of designer perfume flooding the market this Christmas actually contain cyanide and urine. How very romantic. And those are your front pages. And look, let's get reaction now from Rebecca Jane, Nigel Nelson and David Oldroyd Bolt. There's Nigel. There's David. There you go.
Looks thrilled.
He does. He's delighted to be here. And let me tell you, we do have lots of stories. An interesting story there across several papers, actually. In the Mail, Nigel Nelson, Why Meghan's still invited to the coronation? It's very clear that the palace's media people are letting it be known that there will be no civil war, there will be no cancellation. They'll keep their titles and they'll be at the coronation.
Yes, the palace has been obviously heavily briefing all day, and the
love bombing the couple.
Yes, but what will happen behind closed doors will be much more interesting. But yes, they've been briefing the fact that there won't be a rift, that they can come to the coronation, everything's going to be lovely, there'll all be smiles out in public. But as I say, behind closed doors, I think they're in for a real pasting.
Do you think the constitutional crisis is now over? If they don't get stripped of their titles, what's the strategy? Is King Charles thinking to himself, look, they will eventually run out of material, this story will eventually run out of steam, we just wait for that to happen?
It's not really a constitutional crisis, is it? I mean,
don't know.
It's not that important, to be honest. And I think that probably Charles feels that that's the way to treat it. That if the palace start reacting, that they really fuel what is going on and make it run and run. So at the moment that... if I was advising King Charles at the moment, I'd say, do nothing. Make some nice noises towards them. That's all you have to do.
To strip them of their titles would have mild constitutional implications, though, wouldn't it? Perhaps optically. The idea of just ripping their titles off them, it feels like that would set a precedent.
Well, he's already taken away... not taken it away, but he's done things like...
HRA, I think. HRH has gone, hasn't it?
Yeah, but what I was thinking was the Chancellor of State, which is a much more important constitutional position, because if the King is not available or if he's sick, then somebody else stands in. And under the system that they had before, Prince Harry is one of those people, because of his line to the throne, that actually did stand in for the King. Now, he hasn't actually been stripped of that, but they've added Princess Anne and somebody else, and the idea would be that Harry would never get to do it. That has a constitutional implication. I think the rest is just cosmetic.
What does history tell us about this situation, the strategy of the royals, which is softly to look the other way? Is this has this got good historical precedent? Is it the right thing to do, David?
Let me start with the last bit first. I think it's exactly the right thing to do. To say that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex weren't going to be invited to the coronation would, I think, be disastrous.
Churlish.
It would be churlish in the first instance, but it would be disastrous for the monarchy because it would show them to be affected by such things that they're not supposed to be affected by, such as public opinion, and particularly American public opinion. Frankly, who cares what the Americans think? They're not part of our constitutional settlement. They have absolutely no impact on whether or not we retain a monarchy or whether we go Republican. It's otiose. The historical precedent, well, I suppose the most recent one is the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. They were not invited to the... I don't think they were invited anyway, to the coronation in 1953. It was not considered... He certainly was not invited to the coronation of King George VI in 1937. So I think the idea is that once you've backed out of the system, you don't get to opt in and choose when you come back, except, of course, if the sovereign decides that you should be there. The basic point about the Sussexes is, I think, that at the moment they're riding the crest of a wave of their own design. That is, they have set up a particularly effective, in some quarters, idea that they were mistreated, that the Duchess of Sussex was not given the correct initiation into her royal duties, which I think is factually incorrect, but this narrative has some purchase. And the royal strategy, the PR strategy from the palace, seems to be to let that wave die on the sands and then carry on. And then we hope that in years to come, the Sussexes will be able to be brought back into the fold. Whether or not they allow that through is entirely a question for them, because it will be their actions that decide this. I don't think that the King and the Prince of Wales have any other design other than to hope that the Duke of Sussex and perhaps his Duchess can one day be back in the royal family.
Rebecca Jane, is King Charles right to look the other way after seeing this institution and his family attacked so readily?
Yeah, because...
You wouldn't look the other way?
No, but, I'm not right. I know that I'm a bull in a china shop, and I don't think it's for everybody. It's certainly not what a royal would do. No, I think that they're handling it pretty well, because the narrative that Harry and Meghan have spun is exactly that they've been attacked, the press is terrible, and when you say they've done it by their own design, I couldn't agree more. This crest that they're riding, they've designed it, they've calculated it, and they know exactly what they're doing. So the palace and the royals can't argue back, because then they would go, oh, see, we were right. They are abusive. They have done this to us and they have done that. So, of course, they're going to take the moral high ground, and well done to them. But, you know, it's time that they went. They want a private life. Clear off and have it.
The problem with stripping them of their titles or uninviting them from the coronation is it plays into their narrative of being victims, doesn't it? So that's perhaps why Charles is right not to give them that pleasure and not to give them that material.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's another documentary if they don't go to the coronation.
I know, and it's like, do you know what?
It's another book.
6 hours of a documentary. Get a grip. That was about a 45-minute segment at best. It was absolutely ludicrous. It was two people's narcissistic trail of nonsense.
Nigel, you've been reporting on the vagaries of British politics for decades now. You know when a story is running out of steam. When will this one run out of steam? Will it ever?
Well, I mean, I think that after the books come out, after Prince Harry's books...
Is that the full stop?
Well, not as much as the full stop. At the moment, this is obviously what the King is doing at the moment, is trying to bring a full stop to it. But we've got the book to go. I don't think they'll ever come back. I don't think they'll ever be allowed back in. What I think will happen is when you have these major family events, which the coronation is for them, then, yes, they will be there because you won't want to snub them. But in a sense that they will run out of material after a while. At the moment, they've only got themselves to sell.
I think I can agree with you partially that they won't be allowed back in, but I think there is every possibility that if the Duke and Duchess of Sussex divorce, the Duke of Sussex will be allowed back in given time.
We go to a different... Yes, we go
I think that is part of the palace strategy, because, as a friend of mine once said, she's only going to be a university term wife. She'll be there for 3 or 5 years. And when she gets bored and when the momentum runs out, I'm sure she will decide that she wants to do something like run for president, at which point the stage is... I think this is a very good, careful strategy from the palace. They are ensuring that the door always remains open for Prince Harry to return to his family. Whether Meghan the Duchess is allowed back, I think, is a very, very different question.
Would the public welcome Harry back if things were not to work out with Meghan? Of course, we hope they do work out. But if they were to divorce, well... I'm being polite, I suppose. But yeah, I wouldn't... It's not great for the kids.
I think if Prince Harry were to be contrite, and I think if he were to perhaps recant of some of the wilder accusations he's made against his family and against the nation, therefore, I think there would be a sense that he would be welcomed back because there's residual affection for him. Yeah. He was hugely popular.
The prodigal son.
Hugely popular as an army officer, as a progenitor of charity, and as a really good media performer. I think the public had affection for him.
He turned his back on his duties.
Yes, he did.
And he turned his back on the nation.
But surely part of the Christian ethic for which the royal family sticks by is that of forgiveness.
But what about the public? Would the public forgive, Nigel?
Well, I'm sure that the royal family can forgive. I just don't see there's a way back for him. I just think once you've burnt your bridges quite so much as Prince Harry has, that how do you come back and fulfil some kind of royal role?
What about this, right? Prince Harry, single Prince Harry, back in the palace in 10 years' time. Boris Johnson back in number 10. Anything's possible. And Donald Trump back in the White House.
I think I'll go and join Meghan in America.
I'm out.
RJ, last word.
I don't have one.
No, well, I don't blame you. In the end, it's I think, a personal tragedy. I love that picture of Prince Charles on the front page of the Express. Hurt King still seeks peace with Harry, still seeks peace with Harry. And I think we wish that upon the family. Many more great stories to come. We'll talk about when the right time is to open Christmas presents. A colleague who I saw this week was wearing her Christmas present from her partner like in mid-December. What's that all about? We'll talk about the etiquette of when you open your Christmas presents. And also, we'll talk about makeup in the workplace. Is it outdated? See you shortly.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
We got the papers in the company of David Oldroyd Bolt, Rebecca Jane and Nigel Nelson, three brilliant commentators and good friends of mine, I'm delighted and honoured to say. Let's have a look at a couple more papers, stories, big ones. This, hospitals told empty beds before 999 strike. A crisis in the NHS, and this time self-inflicted, which is not only striking nurses, but striking ambulance drivers. Do they enjoy your support, Rebecca Jane?
No. Sorry. It's a matter of life or death for people. What on earth are they doing? This is absolutely ridiculous. Every man and his dog is striking and something has to be done about it because everybody in this country is affected by what is going on and they have the luxury of employment of certain types and they're seeking a 19%, is it 19 or 17%?
19.
19% pay rise. I'm a self-employed person, couldn't ask for that in a million years. My client said clear off. So, no, I think it's absolutely atrocious and they need to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, could this action backfire on the unions? Is public support for these strikes waning in your estimation, Nigel?
At the moment, not, no. I mean, public support is still quite strong for all of them, I mean, including the rail workers. I mean, RMT is still enjoying public support. The nurses certainly are. I think on the nurses front, probably there is a deal to be done if the government will enter pay talks, because 19% may be reasonable, but it's not realistic.
Right. David, it's really the winter of discontent, isn't it? I mean, we've got union strife. You can't send a Christmas card to your granny or buy a last-minute gift. The pubs are empty because of the rail strikes, which is a disaster for hospitality. Inflation's raging. We're not in a good place, are we?
We are not, and I don't agree that they are that this deal or this demand is realistic, and I certainly don't think it's in any way reasonable. Whenever I see a story like this, I wonder how long it's going to be before Britain wakes up and realises that we're being held hostage by the health service. Every single thing that is wrong with public budgeting comes down to the fact that the NHS is taking 42.5% of day-to-day spending. If we did not have the system like an anchor around our necks dragging us down, we would be able to have better public services in other areas. But because people have a sentimental attachment, often a reasonable attachment based on their treatment over the years, but nowadays an unfounded attachment to the NHS, we'd be able to have a more sensible, a better, a more grown-up discussion about budgeting in this country. As it is, as long as people support the health service in its unreformed way, in its way of gobbling up more and more and more of the public resources, frankly, we might as well not bother talking about anything else.
Let's do 3 in 3. It can be done. Gary Glitter, 3 in weeks. You're a lawyer. What's your view on this, Rebecca Jane?
Absolutely disgusting. Lock him up for life.
Yeah, 16 years, he's served half of it. He's a multi-millionaire. He's laughing all the way to the bank. Drugs found after parties at Truss government home. We don't know any individuals involved, but it's not surprising. Cocaine is all over the House of Commons, isn't it?
Cocaine is everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it would be young researchers. I don't think we're accusing Liz Truss of doing it herself, just that some people who were guests there might have done.
Nigel, you seem pretty lively yourself tonight.
I'm fine, thank you.
Very good, strong coffee in the green room.
That's what it is. Nigel is high on life. Look, controversial Canadian media personality Jordan Peterson has said that women shouldn't wear makeup in the workplace as it's too sexual. Take a look.
We don't know what the rules are. Like, what? Here's a rule. How about no makeup in the workplace?
Why would that be a rule?
Why should you wear makeup in the workplace? Isn't that sexually provocative? What's the purpose of makeup?
Some people would like to just put on makeup.
Why?
I don't know why.
Why do you make your lips red? Because they turn red during sexual arousal. That's why.
Rebecca Jane, over to you.
I'm absolutely disgusted.
Why are you covering your lips?
I'm mortified. They've just taken us back to about 100 years. The comment that he says, if a professional woman doesn't want sexual harassment in the workplace, she's making a critical mistake by wearing makeup. You absolute disgusting human. That's terrible, terrible attitude. It's like saying that somebody actually deserves sexual harassment just because they wear makeup. We don't wear makeup for men or for other people or for them to be attracted to us. We do it for ourselves and our own confidence. If I get a glance at myself going past the mirror and I look like a dog, that affects my confidence for the rest of the day.
Is the existence of makeup sexist in itself? The fact that men don't wear it and women do, does that show that women are under more pressure to look a certain way?
We are under a lot more pressure to look a certain way.
So isn't he got a point then? If he says, look, don't wear makeup, is he not liberating women?
No, absolutely not. People are allowed to do whatever they want to do and they should be given that choice, and we shouldn't be judged by lunatics saying that we deserve
By the way,
sexual harassment.
don't be fooled. David Oldroyd-Boat caked in makeup tonight.
Well, my dear, as I think you might be as well. Men do wear makeup in the workplace. I think we must be a little careful here because it seemed to me from that clip as though Dr. Peterson was being provocative to the person he was discussing this with. He was trying to get the other person to bring something out.
Which is what he does. Quickly, people are opening their Christmas presents early. It seems to be a new disease. My son needed trainers in October, and I said, well, that's your Christmas present. So, you know, I don't know what he's going to get on the 25th. When's the correct time to open your presents? When do you do it?
One on Christmas Eve and then the rest after church on Christmas morning.
Oh, so one on Christmas Eve? Well, like a palate cleanser?
Yeah, I think when you get back from midnight mass, you can open one just to say well done and then...
Nigel, briefly?
No, that a Christmas present is only a present if it's not opened at Christmas.
Oh, nicely done. And Rebecca, quick answer.
100% Christmas Day only.
There you go. We're back tomorrow at 8. Thanks to my panel and to you for watching. Headlines is next.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deacon and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. The weekend promises big changes. It is going to steadily be turning milder, and as it does so, some wet weather on Sunday could lead to a spell of snow for a time. That's going to come from low pressure systems lurking behind me way out in the Atlantic. For the time being, we've got high pressure across the south, making for another very frosty night. Further north, it is turning a bit milder, but still cold enough for some problems as we continue to see some hill snow and at low levels, rain and sleet showers, potentially turning things quite icy from North Wales across northwest England and into parts of Scotland. For much of the south, as I said, it is very cold again in rural spots, negative double figures, and similar temperatures across northeast Scotland, perhaps where there's some snow lying on the ground. So potentially icy on Saturday morning. We've still got these showers coming in. Quite a lot of cloud tomorrow compared to today across northwest England and North Wales. Rain at low levels, but some hill snow will continue. Certainly snow in the showers across the Highlands of Scotland. For many, though, it's a dry and a bright Saturday. Still cold, but not quite as cold. Temperatures are just starting to lift as the winds switch round to a southwesterly. That means we'll see a few more showers across North Wales, northern England during Saturday evening, still with some snow on the hills and therefore potentially icy. There will be another widespread frost on Saturday evening, but actually temperatures rising through the night as we start to see this change. Wet weather just edging into the southwest means that, yes, it'll be frosty through the evening, but temperatures will be picking up through the night. As this wet weather arrives, though, and hits the cold air, there could be some heavy snow for a time on Sunday. Wales, particularly the high ground, then into parts of the Midlands, and then into northern England and Scotland. That snow could cause some problems, but even further south, the rain hitting frozen surfaces may make things very icy. So we do have warnings in place. Still cold across the northeast, but it is turning milder through Sunday.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us.